This is Newsroom. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg here in South Africa. I'm Evan Jansen. The show is always live, broadcast from our studios in Auckland Park. We're also streaming live on YouTube. That's for the entire 3 hours. That's the new duration of the show from 9 until 12 in the morning. We're also available on YouTube on demand a little bit later in the day if you want to watch that. Obviously standing by with a news update shortly, but let's first see what's trending this morning, Anine.
Yes, good morning, Eben. We've already seen that COSATU and Decent Work is trending on Twitter this morning. This as COSATU members are embarking on their national strike for World Decent Work Day. Yesterday, we also had exciting news from Facebook, but this morning, exciting news from Twitter. A bit more about that later.
Judgment expected today, Evan, in the matter between Black Mbete and 3 opposition parties. We'll await that one with bated breath. And then, of course, a twist in the tail in the Bob Hewitt rape and abuse trial. And we'll take a look at that as well. So you have to stay tuned for more.
Sensational development, actually. Elvis will give us an update shortly. Let's go to Kendall quickly. Kendall, the Boks have got some business to do today.
They've got some business to take off. It's not exactly D-Day today, Eben, but they are playing another small team, 16th ranked Minnow at the United States, and they got to do the job, and we'll be covering all of that a little later in this sports bulletin.
Well, Kendall, thank you very much for that update. Let's go to the news desk where Elvis is standing by with this morning's first update.
Thank you, Evan. Let's now take a look at all your headlines. The High Court in Cape Town is expected to deliver judgment any time from now in the matter between the National Assembly Speaker Black Mbete and 3 opposition parties that want to unseat her. A group storms into the Public Protector's office demanding she probes pre-1994 alleged theft and state money. And legal experts say it's too early to tell what impact the new evidence relating to the Bob Hewitt's rape and sexual abuse trial could have on his appeal process. Those are all your headlines, but Kendall Makamata is standing by to tell you more about your sports. A very good morning once again, Kendall.
Good morning, Elvis, and thank you very much. You know, we're going to take a quick sneak peek into what we've got in sports for you for today. At the Rugby World Cup last night, Romania staged the greatest comeback ever, from 15-0 down against Canada at half-time to claim a 17-15 victory. And the Springboks gear up for another must-win match, this time against 16th-ranked United States. And Orlando Pirates arrived back to a hero's welcome after beating Al Ahly 5-3 on aggregate to make it into the finals of the CAF Confederations Cup. And that's where we've got it for sports, so make sure you stay tuned for that around about 10:20 and at 20 past the hour. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. Jumbo Africa, if you've just joined us, and a very warm welcome to Channel 404. This is Newsroom. Let's take a look now at your top story this hour. The High Court in Cape Town will now deliver judgment this morning in the matter between the National Assembly Speaker Black Mbete and 3 opposition parties, Ahang, COPE and the UDM. The court was expected to make a ruling yesterday afternoon, but delayed the process to 10 o'clock this morning. The 3 parties want Mbete to be declared unfit to hold office. They also want the court to allow the use of a secret ballot among MPs on a no-confidence motion in the president. Ahang parliamentary leader Andries Tlakama was not pleased with the delay, but says he's confident that the court will give a fair judgment. A group called Black First, Land First have stormed the Public Protector's office in Pretoria, demanding to meet Thuli Madonsela. They want her to speed up an investigation into 26 billion rand allegedly stolen from the Reserve Bank pre-1994.
The demands are clear, but the group was determined to make a lasting impression, forcing their way into the office. and no amount of mediation would deter them.
Where is the 26 billion? Why are you protecting white capital? This is unfortunate that an institution which has got such big a reputation, such as the public protector, is failing to protect the public.
The police had to be called in to restore order.
The 26 billion rand relates to the findings of an investigation commissioned by government in 1997. The CIEX probe reportedly found that some of the money stolen from the Reserve Bank had been channeled to commercial banks and offshore accounts.
The report was handed over to then-President Thabo Mbeki in 1999. And 4 years ago, Madonsela started investigating why the report is gathering dust. On Twitter, she explains that the probe has been derailed.
The major hold-up has been caused by resource constraints. The public protector could not have dedicated investigators to continue with the investigation.
The public protector hopes to finish the investigation by the end of the year. Aldrin Simpier, SABC News, Pretoria.
President Jacob Zuma has established a task team to look at student funding following violent protests at several universities. The decision was taken at a meeting between Zuma and leaders of tertiary institutions in Pretoria.
Emerging from a meeting described as helpful and successful, the two parties agreed to tackle various challenges affecting institutions of higher learning, from the violent protests that have engulfed many universities to issues of transformation and lack of student funding.
Processes for improving the disbursement of funds and concerted efforts to root out fraud, as well as sourcing additional funding to support students, are currently being implemented.
Another major issue at some tertiary institutions, transformation.
We undertake to participate fully and energetically in finding solutions to the incredible challenges that we have around both the transformation of universities and the financing of poor students in particular, but the financing of all students in higher education.
A transformation summit in the higher learning institutions will be convened later this month. It's expected to give a clear direction on the way forward. Mzondi Limbeji, SABC News, Union Buildings, Pretoria.
Our Tembo traditional leaders will meet today at the Bambane Great Palace outside Mthatha to discuss King Bulikhaya Dalinyebo's legal woes. King Dalinyebo is facing a 12-year jail term after he lost an appeal in the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein. Now, he's been sentenced for various crimes that he committed in the 1990s. King Dalinyebo has decided to approach the Constitutional Court to review the judgment.
Last week, a faction of Amadlomo clan supporting King Bulikhaya Dalinyebo nominated his 22-year-old son Azenati to take over from his father should he go to jail. This comes after the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein last week reduced his 15-year sentence to 12 years for kidnapping, arson and defeating the ends of justice. It also set aside his culpable homicide conviction. Bulikhaya has vowed to file papers in the Constitutional Court. Some chiefs in the pro-Dalinyebo faction have threatened to join their king in prison if all his legal attempts to stay out of jail fail. Meanwhile, a faction of anti-Dalinyebo chiefs led by Chief Thanduxolo Mtirara has dismissed the nomination of the king's son, arguing it is unprocedural. This group wants the king to be suspended pending finalization of the proposed Constitutional Court challenge.
Now, here's a twist in a tale. Legal experts say that it's too early to tell what impact the new evidence relating to the Bob Hewitt rape and sexual abuse trial could have on his appeal process. Meanwhile, reaction has been pouring in on social media after SABC reports of emails showing that the women who accused the former tennis champion Bob Hewitt of rape communicated extensively before the trial. In court, the women testified that they had only limited contact with one another and never discussed the case. 75-year-old Hewitt was convicted on 2 counts of rape and 1 of sexual assault earlier this year. The women had all been coached by Hewitt in the 1980s and 1990s when they were girls.
Email rape accusers Suellen Shihan and Teresa Tolkien emerged. In the thread, the two discussed issues of the case, despite denying that in court. In one conversation, the question of whether or not rape constitutes penile penetration is discussed. The advocacy group supporting the women since the beginning of the trial says the emails are being blown out of proportion.
The facts of the matter remain. These women were abused sexually by Bob Hewitt. It sounds to me that there's quite a lot has been made from normal conversational thing into something quite sinister.
The tennis champion was sentenced to 6 years imprisonment. He won a bid to appeal the sentencing and has been petitioning to appeal his conviction.
If true, it will prove that the three complainants are unreliable witnesses. So therefore we'll have to approach the President of the Supreme Court of Appeal.
The NPA was not aware that the witnesses had frequent communications before they testified in court. The prosecutor who prosecuted the matter led evidence on the basis of the statement the witnesses deposed to the police.
The NPA is awaiting a briefing from the prosecutor before it decides on the way forward. Hasina Gori, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The new development bank, formerly referred to as the BRICS Development Bank, will host the next summit in South Africa in December. This development bank is an alternative to Russia, Brazil, India, China and South Africa from the American and the European World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. Now, earlier, SABC News spoke to Leslie Marsdorf, the Vice President of the NDB, about why this initiative offers more opportunities than the World Bank.
In the World Bank, we have a very minuscule representation, so our capacity to access bigger pools of capital is much greater in the new development bank. That's point number one. Number two, the bank must still obviously get a credit rating, which will determine our cost of funding. We would want to be more competitive, which means that it will be in South Africa's interest to access funding from the new development bank.
And that's your news for now. Let's now cross over to Eben Janssen to continue.
Yeah, thank you very much, Elvis. Elvis will be back a little bit later, top of the hour, 10 o'clock, to give us a complete update of developing stories this morning. Of course, now we move on. Monday marked the beginning of a week-long surgery blitz at the Charlotte Maxeke Academic Hospital in Johannesburg to address the long-standing issue of backlogs. First on the list are arthroplasty and cataract procedures. Cataract surgery can restore vision lost to cataracts and often can reduce dependency on spectacles. Now, arthroplasty is a surgical procedure to restore the integrity and functionality of joints with a focus on knee and hip replacement. Now, to talk about this blitz, we are joined by Steve Mabona, who is the spokesperson for the Gauteng Department of Health. Good morning to you, Steve. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks very much.
It's an interesting development. It's a nice take to have a week-long blitz where you deal with a backlog like this. Tell me the thinking and a little bit more about how this blitz will proceed.
Look, you will have an understanding that during the budget vote in June, the MEC pronounced that we will have to have strategies on reducing our backlogs. And we've decided that, look, we need to do a team effort, make sure that we go to all our facilities, I'm talking about your academic hospitals where they conduct these procedures, and say, this week, let's double our effort. Let's have a teamwork and work more. So we have identified about 150 people that must be done cataract at Charlotte Maxeke, and about 20 of arthroplasty. And you'll have an understanding that arthroplasty is quite challenging because you'll have people who are suffering from osteoarthritis, and you will then have to conduct your knee replacement and your hip replacement, which is quite an expensive exercise. And we needed availability of theater and availability of other health professionals working together, making sure that we do these procedures.
Is this going to be Gauteng-wide, or are you focusing firstly at Charlotte Maxeke?
Well, we've decided that we need to focus at Charlotte Maxeke and move again to Helen Joseph. Helen Joseph started as well on Monday, but on a lower scale. And we will then be identifying other academic hospitals. Our next trip will be Para, because we will have a backlog there. And we'll move to Steve Biko, go to George Mukari, and conduct all these procedures, make sure that we reduce the backlog. You'll have an understanding that at Charlotte, we have over 600 people who are waiting for, arthroplasty procedure. And we are saying, if we double the effort, under normal circumstances, in a year, we'll do 300. So we are saying in a year, we'll have to do 600, and it will take down the backlog. And in other areas as well, we'll do the same and make sure that we give people what they deserve.
Who are going to be the immediate beneficiaries? Who are you targeting for this kind of relief?
Hence, we have the backlog. We have already people on our waiting list. We will then make sure that we go to our waiting list. And what we appeal against is the cancellation, because some of the reasons why we have backlog, and it's people who are cancelling on us, and it becomes difficult for one to be accommodated the following day or next week, because we have people who are waiting for these procedures to be conducted. So we'll be targeting those that are on waiting list, and we have people who are coming from private sector, because these procedures are expensive. Private doctors and the private hospitals, they refer to us, and because we are government, we are public, we cannot turn anyone away. We will then have to conduct these procedures.
On average, how expensive is one of these procedures?
Look, if I were to make an example, what you call the there's a arthritis where after conducting the procedure, you will then have to give a dose. Your dose will cost you about 8,000 one dose, which you will need to do two doses, in a month. So you will have an understanding on what we're talking about. So it's quite an expensive exercise, but you will also understand that Gauteng Department of Health was at some point did not have money. We're coming back from that environment where we did not have money, but now we do have. And we are working very hard to make sure that we don't have a qualified report in the next financial year, because we need to have an unqualified one in the next financial year.
This week, if it's successful, and you can give me an update how it started, do you see it being moved into other types of procedures?
Yes, we'll have an understanding that here it's team effort more than anything. Though we have challenges on resources, which we need to utilize what we have, very fruitfully. But then you need, like for instance, your bed availability. We need to have beds. We need to have ICU beds as well. So we synchronize the availability and make sure that you release those or discharge people who don't need to be at the hospital, so that those that are done, we are done with the surgery, they will then have to be given 2 or 3 days to mend before we discharge them. So we are saying we started very well, and we are moving very well now. I think by the end of the week, we should have done quite a sizable number of surgeries that we are looking for.
Well, Steve Mabona, spokesperson for the Gauteng Department of Health. It's a very interesting view that you've taken. I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people in need. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, time for us to go over to Anine. She's standing by to give us an update what's happening on social media this morning. Lots of different stories developing. Anine?
Hazel, even as I've mentioned earlier, COSATU and Decent Work already trending on Twitter this morning. Remember, it's going to be a national march. COSATU members gathering in cities and towns all around the country, actually too many to mention here right now. But people have been complaining about traffic congestion, They've been warned, so you can follow the hashtags Kusatu, you can follow hashtag Decent Work if you want to find out more of where those traffic congestions are. I see tweets coming in from Cape Town saying people struggling to move in and out of the CBD on Cape Town. So just keep a lookout on Twitter for those developments. There we have the hashtag and Kusatu there on the screen. Those are the hashtags you can follow. Then, Eben, probably the biggest story for the SABC in the last 24 hours are the emails that have gone around in terms of the Bob Hewitt case. Lobby groups have come out and said that they're not sure if this can be used now for his appeal, but we've seen a journalist tweet exactly what the content of those emails were. You can log on to Twitter, just search for SABC News. Those are some of the emails that you'll be seeing that SABC journalists have tweeted regarding that story over there. So just search for hashtag SABC News and you'll be able to see what exactly the content of those emails have been regarding the new development in the Bob Hewitt story. Even definitely some good news today on Twitter. Well wishes pouring in for Archbishop Desmond Tutu. He turns 84 today. It's certainly been a difficult year for the Archbishop. He's been in and out of hospital, and we see some prominent South Africans there. The public protector this morning wishing Tutu a happy 84th birthday. The South African government and President Jacob Zuma has also wished the Archbishop a happy birthday this morning. And there are some beautiful pictures that you can also search for on Twitter coming through. Just well wishes all round pouring in. There we go. Maps Mapunyane. He's also wishing the Archbishop a happy birthday. And then lastly, Evan, I did quickly mention that yesterday we heard about the exciting news from Facebook that there will be free internet for a few African countries from next year. But this morning, Twitter has some exciting news to announce. The Twitter app will now have a button called Moments, which means for the first time you can see shows, events unfold in real time on your Twitter app. There we go. It will look something like this. Tweets will be able to be put with these videos and images. Whatever is happening, you'll be able to see it on Twitter, be able to talk about it, comment about it. That's definitely one of the latest changes to come to Twitter, most fundamental changes at least, that we're going to see happening. So yes, that's just basically a wrap of what is happening on social media on Twitter.
Thanks, Janine. Yeah, she'll be back a little bit later to give us another update. Now, mine water management and acid mine drainage has for many years been a major environmental challenge for South Africa's mining sector. In 2002, the first known incident of AMD flowing onto the surface from an abandoned gold mine in the Western Basin in the Krugersdorp area came to light. This is why the Western, Central and Eastern bases of the Witwatersrand are currently the main focus of South Africa's acid mine drainage treatment needs. Now, SAME Water is one of the companies that is actively involved in the treatment of acid mine drainage throughout Gauteng and beyond. And here to tell us a little bit more about this is the Technical Director of SAME Water, Cornelius de Swart. Good morning, Cornelius. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
It's a long time in the making. It's always periodically in the news. What's the latest? Where are we when we talk about the threat of AMD?
Well, I think what we got to start with is just where does AMD come from? And I think for people to understand this, it's really water that comes into contact with pyrite, which is also commonly known as fool's gold.
Yeah.
And that's what causes the acidity to build up in the water. Now, I don't think that when the early people started to mine that they knew about this. So where are we today? We sit with a problem with 100 years worth of gold mining activities in the Gauteng area. And this level of water is rising inside of the underground levels. Now, so are we winning the war against AMD? I would think so. The figures currently for the acid mine drainage project in Central Basin, the level have dropped because of the efforts of that plant from 103 meters have dropped now to 115. Now, it doesn't sound like a lot, just 15 meters. If you take it over the entire area of the Central Basin area, it is millions and millions of liters of water that's being treated.
What are the immediate sort of threats to people, to communities in and around these mining areas?
Immediately would be when this water actually surfaces. And now what we mean by surfaces is if it actually contaminates the upper levels of the water that we actually take from boreholes to drink. And it's definitely acidic in the sense of approximately 5 pH. And it doesn't really sustain biological life at that stage. So we need about a 6.5 to still sustain biological life. So we're talking about wildlife, environmental impacts of that case, as well as sinkholes. It's a definite another threat that we sit with in regards to surfacing acid mine drainage water.
Is it repairable, and what will it take, and how much will it cost?
Repairable, I think it's a question, do I have the crystal ball? I want to congratulate, that the government have put some money aside and a plant was built in record time, and we can see the results in the drop of the acid mine level. Is it repairable? I don't think so. I think it's manageable. And I think we can manage it. I mean, currently the idea is to take the water level down by several hundred meters. And eventually, I think the acidity will be less and less to the extent where we can leave it and not continue to treat it anymore.
How does one treat it? How does one reverse this process?
Many technologies are tested, but the only proven technology at this stage that really works is for us to actually add quicklime to the acidic water. Adding quicklime to the acidic water brings the pH up from about 5 to 8.5. And then when we do this, heavy metals, iron, that is currently in solution in the acidic water, will then precipitate and fall out. And then in big tanks, we will collect that sludge, and then we will take it to a place where it can be treated further or just dispose of safely. We sit with a problem in the sense that it's still salty water after we've cleaned it from its acidic values. And that's salty or salinity needs to be removed by most common process currently is RO. And that is very expensive. Although, approximately 500 tons worth of sludge gets disposed of, and 80 tons of quicklime was added to the water per day.
Are we starting to change the way that we work a little bit, and other parts of the country that are developing similar problems? Can we mitigate those problems?
It's really not the best question for me. From an environmental stage, in regards to the mine planning to going forward, I'm very sure that the Department of Minerals is looking into mitigating efforts to make sure that mines that's currently in operation, are responsible for an extended time period. But it's not the best question for me to answer.
Well, I thank you for joining us. It's certainly very concerning. It's nice to know that the massive efforts are underway to mitigate and to bring back some of the areas around the mines that have been affected. Cornelius de Swart, who's the Technical Director of SAME Water, thank you for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
Now, today, COSATU-led National Day of Action will see thousands of workers across the country taking to the streets in legal marches in support of the World Day of Decent Work. Demands include better public transport systems, a minimum wage policy for the entire country. Several marches have been planned for Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, Western Cape, Limpopo and Mpumalanga. The views on social media have been varied. Let's take a look at what people are saying and who will be attending these marches. Sihle Ngobese says, COSATU never advocates for prosperity. It's always about decent work or a minimum this or that. They never discuss wealth creation, says Sihle. Michelle Woodhouse, World Day of Decent Work. Decent work, employment, economy, government, protest action, march. Neil Sendell says, powerful to hear migrant work organisers tracing stories across continents on the eve of the World Decent Work Day. The Water Power March was not a flop. People were at work trying to make a decent living for themselves, says Tumelo. Here you have it. Today is October the 7th, World Day for Decent Work. We'll try and be there, well, in the show a little bit later. We'll try and get an update around the marches I think the main one is happening at Mary Fitzgerald Square here in Johannesburg CBD. We'll try and cross live there a little bit later in our show. Now, let's take a look at our picture of the day. This one comes from O.R. Tambo, captioned, "Great atmosphere it was here at O.R. Tambo International Airport as fans were waiting for the arrival of Orlando Pirates after their great escape in Egypt over the weekend." Fantastic. South Africa loves a hero, don't we? Let's move on and take a look at front pages. Newspapers from around the globe. We start in Europe. The Times reports that hundreds of thousands of failed asylum seekers will be deported from Europe within weeks under secret plans leaked to the newspaper. Then we move to New York, where the International New York Times says coal mines in Fushun are winding down and shedding jobs as decades of destructive mining have led to frequent landslides that could sink the city. Finally, in China, the South China Morning Post reports that the death toll from a typhoon that struck China on the weekend has now risen to 19, with 4 people still missing. Let's take a quick look at what's happening around the country here in Johannesburg, where the bail application by Otelia Mamachi, arrested for allegedly smuggling drugs worth 4.6 million rand into the country through the O.R. Tambo International Airport, is expected to take place in the Kempton Park Magistrates Court. Then, still here in Joburg, the trial of model agency boss David de Villiers is expected to also continue in the High Court that's sitting in Palm Ridge. He's accused on 38 counts, which include sexual assault, sexual grooming, possession of child pornography, rape, accessing child porn, and fraud. Then, in Pretoria, where a case of tender racketeering, believed to be a first, is set to take place in the High Court. 11 people, including SARS officials, are expected to be tried on charges of tampering with government tender processes. Time for us to take a short break. Newsroom will be back shortly.
We kick off this week's show by seeing how Kenyans are paying tribute to the victims, as well as not only how they've coped, but how they returned stronger after the attacks.
Last year, images of the 4-day Westgate Mall attack saturated front pages.
In the Democratic Republic of Congo, artists have assembled to celebrate the peace this war-torn country has not had in a long time.
No conflict that can't be solved without a conversation.
The Journal, every Saturday at 1:30 on SABC News.
Welcome back. The annual Kimberley Diamond Cup, an international skateboarding competition which started in the Northern Cape in 2011, kicks off today. The competition has grown skateboarding culture across the country and, well, seen it expand to other parts of the continent as well. For the first time since the competition started, there'll be a category specifically for African skaters. Now, to talk to us more about the Kimberley Diamond Cup, Project Director Johan van Skalkwyk joins us live from our studios in Kimberley. Very good morning to you, Johan. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Eben. Thank you for having me.
Skateboarding and Kimberley has become a perfect match, hasn't it?
Absolutely, Eben. This is a project that we brought to the city because we felt that the FIFA 2010 World Cup sort of passed us by, and that we missed out on an opportunity to show the world that the Northern Cape is open for business and that we can stage proper international mega events. We then started this initiative of bringing skateboarding or international skateboarding to Kimberley. Eventually it evolved into a world championship, and today, without any counter, we can say that we've got the biggest and the most comprehensive skateboarding championship in the world. And one must also take into consideration that it also includes the South African skateboarding championships for street, for vert, and it also includes championships for what we call top groms, which is skateboarding speak for the young ones, the under 13s. So it's a very comprehensive event that we have this week.
Tell us about this new category that you've added this year. We're talking about African skaters. How has it grown on the continent, and how will this take shape?
Well, skateboarding is still in its sort of infant shoes in Africa in particular. It's typical, very hardcore street skating where there's a good, solid culture of street skating. And what we've done now, basically the attention that the Kimberley Diamond Cup got on the continent, and also after we've done what we call a pro tour into Africa, where we went to Swaziland, to Mozambique, and eventually we also ended up in Zambia. We went to also Botswana. We realized that there's a huge awareness of the Kimberley Diamond Cup and a big interest of skaters to come. And based on the contact that we had in the past months, we then realized interest from 14 countries, 14 African countries, to come to the Kimberley Diamond Cup. And that set us up, after we also did our own little evaluation of who are the really good skaters in Africa, to then introduce the African Championships, which is a wonderful, wonderful development, especially because the Kimberley Diamond Cup is an African brand of skateboarding, and we take our place next to a number of skateboarding championships in the world, and we can really hold our own. And this is what is so exciting about the Kimberley Diamond Cup.
You talk about that being a world event now. Tell us about the economic impact in and around Kimberley and surrounding areas in the Northern Cape.
Well, originally we took on this project with a couple of objectives. So one being obviously creating an awareness around the Northern Cape as a destination for extreme sport or adventure tourism. Obviously, we used the unique background. In Kimberley, we've got the historical diamond mining heritage, and we've got the Kalahari Desert, and we've got the Namaqualand flowers. And in all these places, there are all these kinds of little skate parks. So we embraced this in the first instance to promote the Northern Cape as a tourism destination. At the same time, you can imagine if you have more than 120 events, which is all part of the Kimberley Diamond Cup program, there are many opportunities for small tourism enterprises and small other kind of enterprises. So we're doing quite well, and just as a matter of interest, it's 79 79 enterprises in general render services to the Kimberley Diamond Cup World Championship event. We contract them as service providers to the event, and we also create opportunities for them to sell their crafts, arts, T-shirts, food, and all kinds of things in the KDC village. So those are two of the most important impacts that we have. The other very important impact, I spoke about awareness that this event creates for us. Since we started in 2011 with skateboarding in the Northern Cape, we already attracted publicity to the value of more than 600 million. So you can see it's huge for the government, and we really have achieved all our economic development objectives that we set for this particular project.
How many visitors from outside the province you're expecting this year, and who will be headlining the big names?
We've got a seating capacity in the grandstands of just over 4,000. And the research that was done by the Northwest University's Potchefstroom campus indicated that 42% of the people who sit in the grandstands are actually from outside of Kimberley and outside of the Northern Cape. So from a tourism perspective, this is a real big hit. Why do they come? Obviously, they come for big entertainment, entertainment via the skateboarding, entertainment via the concerts, and then, of course, we've got a really good nightlife program, which we also present. From a skater perspective, we've got the top 20 skaters from the top 20 in the world. And here you specifically look at Calvin Hoefler, who's just won the Street League event in the United States. He's on his way here. Nigel Houston, which I think everybody regards to be the benchmark. Everybody compares themselves with Nigel Houston. We've got Luan Oliveira that comes. And, of course, we mustn't forget our top South African skaters, such as Moses Adams, who's making a big name for himself internationally, and the Kimberley Diamond Cup played a big role in creating opportunities for a skater like Moses Adams. So those are the people who come out. They come with their own following. They're very popular. These are actually mega rock stars, just from a skateboarding perspective. So they all help us to bring a lot of people here.
Johan, thank you for joining us. It's going to be a big party in Kimberley, it seems. All the best for the event.
Thank you so much, Eben.
Well, a very different way of bringing economic investment into the province. You have to commend the government in the Northern Cape for what they've done with that event. Now, government has set up a task team to try and resolve funding challenges that have led to violent protests at several universities, a move that has been welcomed by the leadership of all the universities across the country. This follows a meeting between South African President Jacob Zuma and representatives of higher learning institutions in Pretoria yesterday. The task team was given up until the end of next month to present its recommendations. It's an emotive issue. It's caused a lot of conflict around the country. Let's have a look what people are saying on social media. Varied comments. Ash Stimbok talks about, I say, don't allow any political parties at or on universities. Representative councils should be neutral. Unfortunately, now it's political parties that get voted for on these councils. Mr. Stimbok Lona says at higher education level there should be one language used as a medium of instruction in a country like South Africa. Talking about SABC. Tamsanga. Afrikaans is part of our history. We cannot exclude people. That's really ridiculous, says Tamsa. Senatla Selebeli says this is a lost cause. South African languages are not developed well enough to be mediums of instruction. Sad but true, says Senatla. Varying views on what is an emotional topic here in South Africa, and there's been lots of conflict on the campuses, and it will continue into next year, seeing that, well, it's an election year. Now, let's take a look at what's happening on Newsroom's Facebook page today. Hundreds of members of the National Union of Mine Workers have marched to hand over a memorandum with their grievances to Anglo Coal Mine head office in Emalahleni, Mpumalanga. Then, rights campaigners accused police and ruling party officials in the Democratic Republic of the Congo yesterday of recruiting thugs to attack a peaceful opposition rally last month, in which more than a dozen protesters were injured. The United States military took responsibility yesterday for a deadly airstrike on a hospital in the Afghan city of Kunduz, calling it a mistake and vowing to hold people accountable. The airstrike left 22 people dead. Time for another break. Newsroom will be back right after this.
Good. Oi. Sit.
Get behind Rugby World Cup 2015 on SABC.
Welcome back. The strike in the coal mining sector continues today. A businessman has told the SABC that he supplies coal to 18 hospitals in Gauteng and the Free State, and his business is now under threat. Around 30,000 members of the National Union of Mine Workers down tools on Sunday, demanding a 1,000 rand wage increase. The employers are offering an increase of around 450 rand a month.
Coal is the third biggest mining sector in South Africa after gold and platinum, but is the most important by value to the South African economy. In the past few years, coal exports have surpassed platinum and gold in terms of value. Last year, coal exports generated more than 51 billion rand for the economy compared to gold, which brought in 30 billion. Also, the rate of job creation in coal mines surpassed that of gold and platinum in the past decade. Therefore, the impact of the strike on the economy cannot be underestimated. Then there's Eskom. The power utility relies entirely on local coal supply to generate electricity for the country. It says it has enough coal to last for a month.
The Chamber of Mines, or some of their members at least, do have their own coal reserves. If we really are forced into a corner, that at some point we might have to tap into that resource, but it's a distant option.
The National Union of Mine Workers has reacted with anger.
The pronouncement of ESCOM, I think, is misleading and is arrogant and is brutal, because it gives the employers a courage to say you can leave them, don't offer them anything. That statement really is not good.
Striking miners today marched to Anglo Coal's offices at Emalahleni to press for their wage demands.
Enough is enough. We black South African mine workers deserve to be treated with dignity and with respect.
As the striking miners were marching at Emalahleni, mine bosses from all affected companies were meeting in Johannesburg to decide on the way forward.
We had a very lengthy meeting today. We will continue again tomorrow. So at this stage, there isn't any way forward that one can talk about. We will know tomorrow in the afternoon once we've had further discussions.
The new Minister of Mineral Resources has appealed to the union and coal employers to do all they can to try and resolve the strike as soon as possible. No further talks between the two parties have been scheduled for now. Mbongeni Muchwa, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now, the heat wave that has had many in a sweat is expected to persist at least until the weekend. This is according to the South African Weather Services in Pretoria. Forecasters say high pressure systems in the upper levels have prompted this condition.
It has had many stifled, especially in Gauteng, Mpumalanga and Limpopo. Temperatures have been rising up to 35 degrees Celsius in Gauteng. Emergency services personnel warned against participating in sporting activities and swimming whilst it's too hot.
Try to stay away from swimming pools from 10 to 4. The heat is very excessive from 12 o'clock, as you know, 34, 35 degrees. And try to drink as much fluids as possible. Water, definitely the best drink to drink.
Peter says children and the elderly need to be highly supervised during this time. Pets also aren't immune to high temperatures.
Don't leave your pets locked up in a car, no matter even if the car windows are open a little bit. Within less than 10 minutes, the temperatures inside the car can reach over 50 degrees, and a dog cannot regulate his body temperature, and it can induce organ failure and ultimately death.
Hot conditions will last until Friday.
This system is expected to be with us up until this weekend, most probably up until Saturday or Sunday. And what it is, why it's termed a heat wave, is because we've been experiencing this excessive heat for 3 days and more.
Emergency services personnel have advised that medical assistance be quickly sought for persistent symptoms of heat stroke. Symptoms include exhaustion, severe headache, vomiting, severe thirst and weakness, among others. Mulimoone Motwa, SABC News, Pretoria.
Yeah, it's been very hot for about a week all around the northern parts of actually southern Africa, not just South Africa. Phil is here with us now. Phil is here to give us the sort of outlook for the week. Phil, just give us a quick idea, quick tip. In the day, it's very hot and you stay out the sun, but at night, how do you cool down at night without maybe dehydrating yourself?
Yeah, well, first of all, obviously you have to keep rehydrated, keep drinking all that water and things like that. But leave your windows open at night and let that air come through, because the later it gets, of course, the cooler it gets. So it's going to be a little bit of an unpleasant one to start off with. Sleeping, there's really nothing you can do about that. Maybe a cold towel on your head, something like that. I don't know.
Phil, this is Joburg, man. We can't leave our windows open.
Get some security bars there. Leave your words.
Quickly, I understand you're having a unique look at what's happening with the Springboks weather-wise there. Before you go and tell us what's happening with today's game, the outlook sort of for the rest of the World Cup. It's becoming late autumn. Is the weather starting to change? We've seen good weather so far. Is it going to start to get a little bit wetter now?
Definitely going to start to get a little bit cooler, a little bit wetter, a little bit windier in those areas there. It shouldn't really start to affect the games later on into the playoffs, obviously, but we're going to have to play it by ear there. The weather up there can be pretty erratic.
Well, I hope it gets a little bit wet, because the wetter it gets, the better it is for the Boks. Phil, tell us what's happening today. Take away the weather, mate.
Well, this is what's happening for this afternoon. In fact, this is the Springbok game. Let me just get out of the way of that for you there. It's going to be about 14 degrees when the Springboks start to play at 5:45 our time. Now, what that means is that it's going to be a little bit of a chilly one there. Wind speeds are about 15 kilometers per hour. Not really changing. If anything, they're going to slow down during the match. And as we progress through that, we might just see that beginning to affect the kicking there. But really, quite low wind speeds really shouldn't have too much of an effect. You can see the humidity is pretty high, but due to that lower temperature there, shouldn't affect our boys whatsoever there. Let's take a look at what's going on back here in Southern Africa, though. Now, for today, we're expecting isolated showers over parts of the eastern interior of Southern Africa. Now, that's South Africa's eastern interior as well as parts of Swaziland. Now, that's the result of very, very small differentiation in pressures in these areas. As you can see along that western coastline, isolated showers die down as we move into tomorrow as the result of more higher pressure systems. You can, in fact, see that higher pressure system sitting over South Africa's eastern interior. Again, that is the result, rather the heat wave, the result of these upper atmospheric highs. And that is why we're seeing this high continuing into the weekend. So these high temperatures, as you can see here, continuing today. Pretoria peaking at 37 degrees, another scorcher there in Pretoria. Temperatures in the low felt up at about 36 degrees in Phalaborwa, Mbombela 31. Temperatures continuing to rise up into the high 30s as we take a look towards South Africa's central interior. Even the southern interior up at 35 degrees in Queenstown. But you can see along that southern coastline, much more bearable temperatures into the lower to mid-20s. Now, southern Namibia remains warm as well. Temperatures rising between 37 and 39 degrees in southern Namibia's interior. So definitely feeling the effects here as well. So it's not just South Africa. Oshakati at 39 degrees as well. And Windhoek, the capital, they're peaking at 36 degrees. A very small amount of rainfall possible over Swakopmund as well as Walvis Bay, despite very limited cloud cover in the area. Now, as we move towards Botswana, no cloud cover here whatsoever. Temperatures range between about 36 and 38 degrees. So again, a very, very hot one there. And moving towards the regions just west of Harare, we're going to see some hot temperatures as well, ranging between about 35 and 37 degrees as you move towards Kariba. Gweru's at 33, and Beitbridge, of course, 37 degrees. Once again, a scorcher there. Tete's at 39 degrees, not quite breaking that 40-degree mark again, but nevertheless, it is very, very hot there. Quite humid conditions, but that coming down over the past few days, the humidity. No rainfall forecast whatsoever for southern Mozambique, although we might just expect a little bit of cloud cover over Maputo as well as Shai. Most of it high level, but you can expect a little bit of lower and mid-level cloud cover make its way to the area as well. Finally, southern Madagascar peaking nice and warm at 28 degrees in Fafarangana. The interior remaining warm at 36-degree highs for Ihosi. That's where I'm going to leave your weather for now. We'll be back very, very shortly. Stay tuned.
Cool. No good news. Unfortunately, it's going to be hot, very hot for the remainder of the week, probably into the weekend and next week. So drink lots of water and keep hydrated. Well, Orlando Pirates, well, they brought the heat over the weekend past, didn't they? Received the hero's welcome yesterday at Joburg's OR Tambo International Airport. That was last night. There's hundreds and hundreds of fans gathered to welcome the team home following their stunning 4-3 victory against Al Ahly. That was in Egypt on Sunday. The Buccaneers have made the country proud by qualifying for the CAF Confederations Cup final for the first time ever. It was an incredible performance with the goals flowing in Egypt. As you can imagine, congratulatory messages have been all over social media in the last 48 hours or so. Let's take a look at some of the tweets as you see those wonderful pictures and scenes that played out yesterday at the airport. Rohit says, well done to Orlando Pirates for making it through to the CAF final. Bring home some gold. Mihlali says, it's hard not to feel a type of way when thinking about what Orlando Pirates did on Sunday. Then the sports girl you love says, welcome back, Orlando Pirates. All the best to the Springboks. It will definitely be midweek madness tomorrow. That's talking about, of course, the Boks against the USA a little bit later today. Thank you, Mr. Kune. Our friends from Kaizer Chiefs have finally come to their senses, and they now agree that Orlando Pirates is the best team in South Africa. I want to say thank you very much, but you're not good enough to play for us, unfortunately. Yes, the comments have been coming thick and fast. There's the ghost. Orlando Pirates, even all the Chief supporters here in the studio, the peanut galleries as we call them, all the men and women who know everything about football, they now say that Orlando Pirates, South Africa's finest football export. Anyhow, let's not gloat about this too much, because they've been very good about it, the Amakosi fans. They've been very, very gracious in their congratulations over the last couple of days. Elvis, who do you support, my friend?
Well, I tell you what, the Amakosi currently, of course, is in the dark, because Orlando Pirates is almost taking the cup. I mean, there's a final ahead. It's going to be a tough one, but congratulations to Pirates. They've done very well. I mean, it's probably the first team that has actually won in Egypt.
That's right. That's right. Did the impossible. Yeah. And you know, it's very hostile there. Very hostile environment. Most hostile football environment, I think. You know, the blazers come out, the band plays outside your hotel window. It's that kind of place. So
you don't get sleep, you can't concentrate,
yeah,
you can't play.
You know, very, very tough. But just quickly, what are you doing at the top of the hour now?
Top of the hour, coming up. There is the march going on with Kusatu right now. We're going to keep a close eye on that. We'll bring you an update on that. And of course, there's an issue that's coming out from the Department of Agriculture that says that free housing will be a thing of the past. We'll take a look at that story as well. We were supposed to cross to Cape Town, but unfortunately that fell through. But also October month has been declared Food Security Month. That's a very important story, very, very important story here for us.
Especially with when we look at the kinds of drought around Southern Africa, Zimbabwe, 4 million people at risk. So a very, very important story that we'll follow up and follow through throughout the month. Elvis will be back at the top of the hour with an update. We'll see you then.
SABC brings to you Rugby World Cup 2015.
We ask tough questions.
Have you spoken to the president about resigning?
We ask hard questions.
What you're trying to do requires a lot of money, and you don't have money.
We ask quick questions.
A quick one. You are aware that the PAC has now been banned by the IEC?
I'm aware.
And you're also aware that it has been banned because of you?
We ask good questions.
Are you an infiltrated organization?
We also ask funny questions.
Is it safe to eat your chicken?
All the questions, all the time, right here on Question Time, Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m.
Media Monitor, the title says it all. Can we really afford more job losses at such a critical time in our economy? Join our panel of experts as they unpack and monitor all the leading and breaking news stories making waves in the print and social media platforms. It seems we don't have a famous son-in-law any longer. Levi, what do you say to this? An A-lister.
I'll leave this one to Levi. He's the romantic.
Watch Media Monitor with me, Alicia Jali, Sundays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News channel.
It's more tragedy for Nepal. A 7.3 earthquake struck the Asian country this morning.
Frightened evacuees fled camps and health facilities when the quake struck.
I think it's a really big hit of earthquake because the gate has also slanted and every pole are moving like that they will fall again.
And it comes barely 2 weeks after a 7.8 magnitude quake claimed over 8,000 lives.
The country saw more of its historic buildings and temples destroyed. The country's president Ram Baran Yadav was addressing a meeting when the quake hit.
Primetime News, daily at 6 p.m. CAT.
In Africa, mobile devices are tools to make payments, browse the internet, and keep governments in check with social media forums.
It's given an average African too much power in their hands.
And tech creativity is solving some of the continent's problems.
Everything is internet driven.
And on Network, we tell you how Africans are using technology and social media in their everyday lives.
Join Siphumelele Zondi on Network every Sunday at 19:30 CAT.
Hello and welcome to the second hour on Newsroom. Jumbo Africa, if you've just joined us, my name is Elvis Preston. I'll be with you until 12 o'clock today. Joining me in studio is our sports anchor, Kendall Makamate. A very good morning to you.
Very good morning, Elvis. I'll be allowing you to do the headlines, then I can give everybody else what the sport headlines are going to be.
Wonderful. Let's come back to Kendall in a short while, but right now let's take a quick look at all your headlines. COSATU leads the National Day of Action as part of the World Day of Decent Work. Ahang says it's confident that the High Court in Cape Town will deliver a fair judgment in their case against the National Assembly Speaker, Baleka Mbete. And a group of angry protesters stormed into the Thuli Madonsela's office demanding that she probes the pre-1994 alleged theft of money from the Reserve Bank. Now those are all your headlines right here on Newsroom. But right now, Kendall Makamate is standing by to give us an update on the sports. Kendall, a quick one.
Thank you very much, Elvis. So here's a quick sneak into exactly what we've got in sports for you today.
Linear distance, and it is over!
At the Rugby World Cup last night, Romania staged the greatest comeback ever, from 15-0 down against Canada at halftime to claim a 17-15 victory. And the Springboks gear up for another must-win match, this time against 16th-ranked United States. Orlando Pirates are right back to a hero's welcome after beating Al Ahly 5-3 on aggregate to make it into the finals of the CAF Confederations Cup. And that, in a nutshell, is what we've got planned for you in the sports bulletin later on. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. Right now, let's take a look at all your headlines. In fact, the top story this hour, a national minimum wage, better public transport systems and the scrapping of e-tolls are among the demands highlighted by workers' marches today. Now, COSATU is leading the National Day of Action, part of the World Day of Decent Work. Legal marches will be held in various cities and towns. The Labour Federation's President Dumo Dlamini says they're calling for radical socio-economic transformation. Now, for more on the march here in Johannesburg, we are joined on the line by our reporter, Diabo Seto. Diabo, very good morning to you and welcome. And can you please give us the latest on the march and how is the attendance thus far?
Good morning, Elvis. Well, as you have said, today COSATU launches a march against decent jobs. As we all know that today is the World Day of Decent Jobs. And we are in Gauteng, where all the branches of Gauteng are gathered. We are in Parktown, and as you can see behind me, there's already activity happening. If you know COSATU, you'll understand the chanting behind me. That they'll also have a route. They'll be moving from here at the final destination, I believe, being the telecom offices. But with me, Elvis, I have the national or top steward editor of COSATU, Mr. Norman Mampane, who's going to give us a bit of more information about what this march is about, what they're aiming to achieve, and also they'll also tell us where the route will go and what they're hoping to achieve for today. Mr. Mampane, thank you very much for your time.
Welcome to SABC for covering this decent work day.
Thank you very much. I see you have a lot of your members here. Why are you here, and and what are you hoping to achieve?
Well, as COSATU, we had tabled socio-economic demands at NETLAC, in which amongst them was the question of efficient, reliable public transport, an end to the current job losses we're facing in South Africa, and also addressing the question of the electricity crisis, which is attacking our community. We believe that this march must continue to ensure that COSATU begin to find its space to speak to its members in fighting for decent work agenda at the workplace, eradicating precarious conditions in which workers are employed under labor brokers. And we believe that this day, across all the 9 provinces, will continue to ensure that we are able to send that message very loud.
Who are you sending this message particularly to? Because we know the issues that you've mentioned are social ills, particularly the issue of unemployment. We know that the country is currently going through a very tough time where particularly the mining industry is shedding a lot of jobs. Who is this message directed to?
Well, across all the 9 provinces and in Gauteng in particular, we are marching to employers such as PRASA, Telkom, Chamber of Mines. Will also be marching to the Premier's office, in which memorandums are going to be tabled in terms of addressing particular issues. To the employers today who are saying they must delay the current looming retrenchment. In Beachwood, for an example, workers are facing retrenchment, and COSATU continue to say there must be a delay in the retrenchment, engage with all the social partners to ensure that we are able to save jobs, but more importantly to government, we must continue to ignite the economic growth points that have been identified to ensure that no worker sleeps on an empty stomach at night.
Truly understood. How does COSATU balance the issue of businesses that have to make a profit and that are working in an environment of a global economic context where companies all across the world are struggling to keep afloat and perhaps sometimes do not have a choice but to let go of members? How are you balancing those two?
Well, the reality that COSATU has been tackling is that we must diversify the economic activities in South Africa. South African economy has been too reliant on mining. So if mining collapses or gets some knocks, all the other sectors are shaken. We believe that we must reignite manufacturing. We must ensure that there is no importation of steel. We must ensure that the agro-processing plants are activated so that at the end of the day, jobs are created in all sectors of the economy to sustain the economy. But more importantly is to ensure that we ban labor brokers, because it is an enemy of workers in terms of ensuring that the decent work agenda gets to be rooted very well on the ground. We believe that workers are tired of being employed under labor brokers.
I see that your members are starting to move now. Give us the route of where you'll be going to and which direction we'll be going to our final destination.
Well, we are going to be moving upslope towards the Constitutional Hill and move into the Gorda Street. We'll be moving into Simon Street, where an assembly of employers are going to be there to receive memorandums and go back to the Gorda, to Department of Labor, and thereafter proceed into the CBD, where we'll be handing a memorandum to the Premier's office and the Chamber of Mines.
And how many members are you expecting here all around Gauteng today?
Well, our projections have been around 50,000, but as we are seeing, members are arriving in their different affiliates. We believe the number is going to be increasing throughout the day because we're going to spend throughout the day on the streets.
Mr. Mampane, let me not keep you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Yabo.
Elvis, you've heard from the shop steward of editors, Mr. Norman Mampane, about what the plan is. The final destination being the Premier's office, where they'll hand over a memorandum of demands or grievances, and they'll also make a stop in the CBD where they will meet employers. We will be going and following them. So throughout all the SABC news bulletins, you will be seeing myself and my colleague Mbongeni Mutwa. We will be giving you an update of how this march is progressing.
Diabo, just briefly, is there a sense that the workers understands the issues on the table and they're marching for? Because there's a number of issues. He just mentioned labor brokers. There's also e-tolls. There's also the scrapping of the nuclear build program. There's also the other issue of a national minimum wage and better public transport. Sounds very confusing, but do they understand what they're marching for?
I would imagine that they do understand what they're marching for, but I suspect that the most important on their agenda is the issue of labor brokers and the issue of decent work or employment, seeing that today is the day of decent work or decent jobs throughout the world. So I would like to understand that they believe that they understand why they're marching. And as you already know, that there are a lot of social ills when it comes to how South Africa's economic landscape is currently. So yes, as a big trade union, they have a lot to march for. They have a lot of issues to tackle, but how they will tackling those issues, we'll probably have to see throughout the day who they give the memorandum to and how this march progresses. We will be talking to the workers as well, just to find out their views and to answer your question as well of if they really understand what they're doing.
Diabo, thank you so much for that report, and she'll keep us updated during the course of the day. Now, let's move on. Ahang says it's confident that the High Court in Cape Town will deliver a fair judgment in their case against the National Assembly Speaker Baleka Mbete. Ahang, COPE and the UDM want Mbete to be declared unfit to hold office. They also want the court to allow the use of a secret ballot among MPs on a no-confidence motion in the president. The court was expected to make a ruling yesterday afternoon, but delayed the process to this morning. Ahang parliamentary leader Andries Kloyama was not pleased with the delay. A group called Black First, Land First, have stormed the Public Protector's office in Pretoria, demanding to meet Thuli Madonsela. They want her to speed up an investigation into 26 billion rand allegedly stolen from the Reserve Bank pre-1994.
The demands are clear, but the group was determined to make a lasting impression, forcing their way into the office. And no amount of mediation would deter them.
Where is the 26 billion? Why are you protecting white capital? This is unfortunate that an institution which has got such big a reputation, such as the Public Protector, is failing to protect the public.
The police had to be called in to restore order.
The 26 billion rand relates to the findings of an investigation commissioned by government in 1997. The CIEX probe reportedly found that some of the money stolen from the Reserve Bank had been channeled to commercial banks and offshore accounts.
The report was handed over to then-President Thabo Mbeki in 1999. And 4 years ago, Madonsela started investigating why the report is gathering dust. On Twitter, she explains that the probe has been derailed.
The major hold-up has been caused by resource constraints. The Public Protector could not have dedicated investigators to continue with the investigation.
The Public Protector hopes to finish the investigation by the end of the year. Aldrin St-Pierre, SABC News, Pretoria.
About Tembo, traditional leaders will meet today at the Bomboni Great Palace outside Mthatha to discuss King Bulikaya Dalinyebo's legal woes. The king is facing a 12-jail-year term after he lost an appeal in the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein. He's been sentenced for various crimes that he committed in the 1990s. King Dalinyebo has decided to approach the Constitutional Court to review the judgment.
Last week, a faction of Amadlomo clan supporting King Buelekaya Dalinyebo nominated his 22-year-old son Azenati to take over from his father should he go to jail. This comes after the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein last week reduced his 15-year sentence to 12 years for kidnapping, arson and defeating the ends of justice. It also set aside his culpable homicide conviction. Buelekaya has vowed to file papers in the Constitutional Court. Some chiefs in the pro-Dalinyebo faction have threatened to join their king in prison if all his legal attempts to stay out of jail fail. Meanwhile, a faction of anti-Dalinyebo chiefs led by Chief Thanduxolo Mtirara has dismissed the nomination of the king's son, arguing it is unprocedural. This group wants the king to be suspended pending finalization of the proposed Constitutional Court challenge.
The leader of the Lesotho opposition Basotho National Party, the BNP, Tesele Maseribane, says he was in a meeting with the former Prime Minister Tom Tabane when he personally told Lieutenant General Tladi Kamori that he was removing him 3 days before the 30th of August. Maseribane contradicted Kamori, who maintains that he didn't know he was removed last August. Now, he was testifying at the SADC Commission investigating the death of the former Army Commander Maparankwe Mahao in Tabanchu in the Free State. Now, for more on this, we join on the line by our correspondent Ntakwana Ngatani, who is in Lesotho. Can you tell us what is the latest that we can expect today?
Good morning, Elvis. This morning, the commission, as we speak, is in camera hearing a witness. Obviously, we won't know who it is up until around 11 o'clock. And then following that, we will get the much-awaited leader of Basotho Convention, ABC, Tom Thabane, who's in exile in South Africa, as you rightfully pointed out. And his supporters have already started arriving here in Tabanchu, dressed in their party regalia, waiting for their leader to testify before this commission. And we understand that his evidence will be the last one that will be heard in South Africa. And then the commission will pack up and go back to Lesotho, where it is expected to hear evidence again up until around the 21st of October. Elvis?
Now, we understand that lawyers representing government and the army are staying away from the commission. Tell us more about that.
Indeed. On the first day that Commission Chairperson, Judge Mphapi Phumaphi, announced that the commission would be moving to South Africa, lawyers representing the army and the government expressed their concern about the commission coming to South Africa. Now, the reason the commission is sitting in South Africa is to hear the exiled opposition leaders who moved to South Africa saying that they fear for their lives in Lesotho, their supporters, members of the army that are also in exile here in South Africa. And so when the announcement was made that the commission had decided that instead of providing these people security to testify in Lesotho, the commission would sit in South Africa, the lawyers then expressed their concern that the privileges, the immunities that are offered under Lesotho laws where the commission is established would not apply in South Africa. Therefore, this means the commissioners, the lawyers, and the witnesses would not be protected. They also raised concern that taking oaths would not necessarily be legal in South Africa instead of, as opposed to when it is done in Lesotho. So they then said they would probably not be participating. And yes, indeed, we have not seen them participating. They have not even been cross-examining the witnesses that have appeared in front of this commission that has been sitting in Tabanchu since last Thursday.
What else can we expect today in Ntakwana?
Well, as I say, this commission probably wraps up its business in South Africa today and moves back to Lesotho, where it is expected to hear more testimonies, some in camera, some in public, and up until we understand up on the 20th or 21st of October. And then the commission will probably go back and then reconsider all the evidence that has been presented before it, and then come out with clear recommendations in terms of the way forward. Now, you remember that it is expected to look particularly into the death of former Commander Maparankwe Mahao. It is expected to look at the removal and reappointment of Army Commander Tlabika Modi, as well as the appointment and removal of Mahao, who was then killed following his removal. So, and also the mutiny that is alleged to have happened in the military in Lesotho. So these are the four key areas that the commission is supposed to deal with and come out with clear recommendations in terms of the way forward for Lesotho. Elvis?
Ntakwana, thank you so much for that update. That was our correspondent, Ntakwana Ngatani, and she was in the Free State and not in Lesotho, as I indicated earlier. Now, the heat wave that has many in a sweat is expected to persist until the weekend. It is hot out there, people. Now, this is according to the South African Weather Service in Pretoria. Forecasters say that high-pressure systems in the upper levels have prompted that condition.
It has had many stifled, especially in Gauteng, Mpumalanga and Limpopo. Temperatures have been rising up to 35 degrees Celsius in Gauteng. Emergency services personnel warned against participating in sporting activities and swimming whilst it's too hot.
Try to stay away from swimming pools from 10 to 4. The heat is very excessive from 12 o'clock, as you know, 34, 35 degrees. And try to drink as much fluids as possible. Water, definitely the best drink to drink.
Peter says children and the elderly need to be highly supervised during this time. Pets also aren't immune to high temperatures.
Don't leave your pets locked up in a car, no matter even if the car windows are open a little bit. Within less than 10 minutes, the temperatures inside the car can reach over 50 degrees, and a dog cannot regulate his body temperature, and it can induce organ failure and ultimately death.
Hot conditions will last until Friday.
This system is expected to be with us up until this weekend, most probably up until Saturday or Sunday. And why it's termed a heat wave is because we've been experiencing this excessive heat for 3 days and more.
Emergency services personnel have advised that medical assistance be quickly sought for persistent symptoms of heat stroke. Symptoms include exhaustion, severe headache, vomiting, severe thirst and weakness, among others. Mulimo Motwa, SABC News, Pretoria.
Drink lots of fluid, put on that sunscreen, put on a hat. And when we talk about fluids, it's not drink beer and save water. It is lots of water. But right now, let's take a look at your sports news with Kendall Makamate.
Thank you very much, Elvis. I am Kendall Makamati, and I've got your sports on Newsroom. Now, world number one Novak Djokovic of Serbia had a straightforward 6-1, 6-1 win over Simon Bolelli in the first round of the China Open in Beijing, Tuesday the 6th of October. Defending champion Djokovic had little problem beating the Italian, breaking his serve 5 times in a win that took just 72 minutes. It was Djokovic's 25th straight win at the tournament, at which he's never been defeated, having won the title 5 times since 2009, only missing out in 2011 when he did not compete. The Serb will face China's Xi Zhang in the second round on Thursday. Meanwhile, Rafael Nadal of Spain came through a good and strenuous test, beating Wu Di of China 6-4, 6-4 in his opening round match. Nadal seeded third, exchanged service breaks early in the first set against the wildcard Wu. Ranked 230th in the world, Wu is also incidentally a former ball boy. Nadal broke serve again in the 7th game and went on to clinch the set 6-4. He won the next set and the match with the same score. Now, recently there was a big development with regards to futures tennis, the third and final tier of international professional competition. Now, a big sponsorship deal was announced, which is expected will go a long way towards building up tennis in South Africa. Joining me from our Cape Town studios is Leroux Conradi, who represents one of the sponsors, Calix Sports Management. Good morning, Leroux, and thank you very much for joining us on Newsroom.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Leroux, can you tell us a little bit about what you've chosen to do and a little bit as well about what Tennis Futures is?
Yes, we are incredibly fortunate that we had a couple of businessmen pulling hands and getting together in the Stellenbosch and Western Cape. We realized that there's a huge need in South Africa for future events. Futures is an entry level for any player to become a professional tennis player. And we need to provide our top players with opportunity to compete against the world's best in South Africa and on home soil. So we got together and we said we need to get these events going in South Africa, and we're fortunate that the first 3 will happen in November, and then hopefully we can use that as a strong base and build from there. So we can get a lot more players to compete against world-class players and obviously help them through that to reach their full potential.
Now, you've been involved with tennis for quite some time. You didn't just start yesterday. What would you say has been missing all along to get South Africa to where it needs to be in terms of tennis worldwide?
We're extremely fortunate that we have tremendous talent in South Africa. We have very good training programs. We have a good junior structure, but we just don't have enough opportunities for our players in the country. So a lot of players has to go overseas to gain the needed experience, and that's why a lot of our national players also only pick and get to their full potential later, 3, 4, 5 years later than the rest. So if we can get the needed tournament opportunities in South Africa, more players can get the opportunity to compete against the world's best, and then by that we can get more players through the system.
Right now, our viewers are seeing overlay a little clip of Kevin Anderson beating Andy Murray at the US Open earlier on this year. So what you're talking about is to get players to peak a little earlier maybe than at 28, where Kevin Anderson is right now, and try to get them into the fold a little sooner.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. I mean, Kevin Anderson is doing incredibly well, and he's really a good ambassador for the country, and that's what we want to try and do. If we can get the needed opportunities through more and more futures and junior ITF events in South Africa, we can get more players to start competing on that level, because it's a lot cheaper to compete on home soil in your country. And we obviously are fortunate then that we can provide some of our players with wild cards into these events.
Now,
so it's easier to gain the needed points.
I'm sorry for cutting your word there, Leroux. Just want to check with you.
Worries.
How much is this deal worth?
We look at around 1.3 million to host a series of 3 tournaments. So we're extremely fortunate to have our title sponsor Digicall on board, and then also our associate sponsors, Stellenbosch Academy of Sport and Kira Holdings. And then we have a lot of suppliers. We have Chill Beverages, we have Cedarburg Water, we have the University of Stellenbosch providing incredible facilities, great accommodation partner, Stellenbosch Academy of Sport just down the road. And with Stellenbosch and the surroundings and what it has to offer, we can only expect an incredible experience for all players. So we encourage everybody to come and visit.
Now, in recent times, there have been players, Leroux, such as, when I say recent times, I'm talking about over the last 30 years, Johan Kriek, Wayne Ferreira, Amanda Kutzer, who've actually flown the South African flag high. And most recently, we've got Raven Klaasen in the doubles. He's been doing fairly well. Are we looking to see if we can build up more of those? I mean, are you looking at like the next 3 years we'll have similar players? Because those have been few and far between. Because after Kevin Curran, it took a while before we got another star.
Yeah, definitely, and that's the whole idea behind these events. What we want to do is we want to create more and more futures. We want to use these 3 in November to build from, and hopefully over the next 3 to 5 years we can get to 12 to 15, and if we join in with Mozambique and in Zimbabwe, get to about 20 futures for our players to compete in, and then we should provide lots more players with opportunity, and then hopefully we will get a Kevin Curran and Wayne Ferreira and Amanda Kutzer again through the system. So this is the way to go. This is the tournaments that we need to get going, and then I'm very confident and actually very excited that shortly we will have more players that we can see competing where Kevin Anderson is at this stage.
Very good. Leroux, I want to thank you very much for speaking to us about this and actually getting involved in an active way with tennis development.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
All right, now that was Leroux Conradi from Kelix Sport Management on the development of tennis and getting it to the top where it really does need to be. On to other sports news. The South African rugby team is bracing itself for a must-win match against world minnows, the USA in London, later today. The Springboks put themselves in this predicament with a tournament opening loss to Japan. They rallied with wins against Samoa and then against Scotland, but still need to cross the line and qualify for the quarterfinals. And so the fate of their World Cup aspirations rests on a win against a team ranked 16th in the world.
The Springboks have put themselves in this situation, and they know that they are the only ones who can get themselves to higher ground. There will be no favours from any of the teams in this group, with both Scotland and Japan still in with a shout of progressing themselves.
We had massive pressure the last 2 weeks. That pressure is still on. At least now we know the way we want to go, what's successful for us, and then just taking that a notch further.
So the word from the camp is that they've come right at just the right time. They'll get a physical match against the USA, if nothing else. Although after 2 massive tests in the last 2 weeks, this crucial encounter will test Bok limits to the nth degree.
It is a little bit tough for the body, it's challenging, but all the teams have to go through it. It's something that we've prepared for mentally.
The Boks will finish the pool stages at a grand 54,000-seater venue in the east of London.
Simon Burke, SABC News, London.
I'll focus on to the other team, the 16th ranked United States. They're gearing up for their penultimate Pool B encounter. This, of course, against the Springboks at the Olympic Stadium in London. Australia, on the other hand, prepare for their all-important Pool A decider against Wales this coming Saturday.
The US has made 12 changes to their starting lineup for the clash against the Springboks. The Eagles have lost their first 2 pool matches against Samoa and Scotland, and naturally will be eyeing their first win of the tournament either against the South Africans or the Japanese in their final match on the weekend. Tonight's encounter will be an exceptionally special occasion for American scrum half Nico Creer. Born in Pretoria, Creer is one of 15 South African-born players in the World Cup playing for other countries.
Obviously for me it's going to be an opportunity that I've dreamt of for a very long time. Probably going to be pretty emotional at the same time. But I mean, you know, it's just an opportunity to play against some guys that you know have made it big in the sport. You know, so it's an opportunity to go out there and just enjoy myself and take on the moment as it comes.
Despite being tied on 13 points each with 3 wins apiece, the Wallabies will start Saturday's match at Twickenham as the overwhelming favourites, having beaten Wales in their last 10 encounters. But the Welsh, considered the dark horse of the tournament, will not be downed easily. The Aussies, though, have done their homework.
Yeah, they've been consistent. You know, we've done a lot of work on Wales. You know, having a look at their set piece and what they offer on multi-phase. Obviously, you can't give away any penalties. You know, with Dan being such a successful goal kicker, they really crucify you if you give them opportunities. So the key there is to trying to put them under pressure and then backing the way and the style that you want to play the game, and our preparation will be so.
As an added incentive, the winners of this match will likely avoid defending champions New Zealand in the last 8. Samantha Mari, SABC News.
Now, it's not just the Springboks that have been in action abroad. This is what met Orlando Pirates when they landed at OR Tambo yesterday. A real hero's welcome. Let's take a look.
I'm an African. As you can see, I'm proud of what Orlando Pirates did. And I think it must be an eye-opener to some other teams in South Africa, particularly Kaizer Chiefs, Sundowns, and some others. Pirates, well done, my boys. Pirates, well done. You are the big team in South Africa.
Orlando Pirates is the giant of Africa. Believe it or not, like it or not, Orlando Pirates rocks!
Well, there you have it, pandemonium as the team known as the Ghosts Ipagania coming to town after that glorious victory in the CAF Confederations Cup. They are now through to the finals of the CAF Confederations Cup final.
Now, all of that was because Pirates were into the final of the CAF Confederations Cup where they meet Etoile du Sahel. Now, that's all we've got in terms of sports. Back now to Elvis.
What do you make of that? All madness at OR Tambo for Orlando Pirates. Right now, let's take a look at all your headlines. A national minimum wage, better public transport systems and the scrapping of e-tolls are among the demands highlighted by workers' marches today. COSATU is leading the National Day of Action, part of the World Day of Decent Work. Legal marches will be held in various cities and towns. The Labour Federation's president, Dumo Dlamini, says they're calling for a radical socio-economic transformation. Ahang says it's confident that the High Court in Cape Town will deliver a fair judgment in their case against the National Assembly Speaker Baleka Mbete. Ahang, COPE and the UDM want Mbete to be declared unfit to hold office. They also want the court to allow the use of a secret ballot among MPs on a no-confidence motion in the president. The court was expected to make a ruling yesterday afternoon, but delayed the process to this morning. Ahang parliamentary leader Andries Tloyama was not pleased with the delay. And a group called Black Furs, Land Furs, have stormed the Public Protector's office in Pretoria, demanding to meet Thuli Madonsela. They want her to speed up an investigation into 26 billion rand allegedly stolen from the Reserve Bank pre-1994. And legal experts say it's too early to tell what impact the new evidence relating to the Bob Hewitt's rape and sexual abuse trial could have on his appeal process. Meanwhile, reaction has been pouring in on social media after SABC reports of emails showing that the women who accused the former tennis champion Bob Hewitt of rape communicated extensively before the trial. In court, the women testified that they had only limited contact with one another and never discussed the case. 75-year-old Hewitt was convicted on 2 counts of rape and 1 of sexual assault earlier this year. The women had all been coached by Hewitt in the 1980s and 1990s when they were girls. Now that's your headlines for now. It's over to Eben.
Yeah, thank you very much, Albus. Now time for us to shift our focus to what happens on the African continent. Right now, before we discuss the details of the presidential elections in Guinea set to take place over the weekend on Sunday, let's take a look at this video footage from Africa Practice that'll break down the situation there for us.
Long hidden from international view, the Republic of Guinea, located in West Africa, was thrust into the international limelight in recent years, thanks to its extensive underdeveloped mineral resources, including the renowned Simandu iron ore mine, a high-profile ongoing mining corruption case, the Ebola outbreak, and importantly, a first democratically elected president, Alpha Condé, keen to rebuild Guinea's image and push the country onto the international stage. Alpha Condé was elected in 2010 on the back of an ambitious vision for Guinea's development, based on wide-ranging economic reforms and anti-corruption measures to re-engage the international community and foreign investors. President Condé solicited counsel from internationally renowned advisors and made inspiring statements about national development. International partners have taken him at his word, and re-engagement has been swift. Unfortunately, over the past 5 years, the much hoped-for development has yet to be realized. This development was premised on the timely realization of Guinea's mining potential. Whilst foundations for sustained growth have been laid, economic progress has been slow and mining sector reform unsatisfactory, factors compounded by the decline in global commodities prices. Social and ethnic cohesion in the country also remains fragile. Disputes between the president and the Guinean opposition have tainted domestic politics since 2010. Over 60 opposition supporters died in protests in the past few years, notably in the run-up to the 2013 legislative elections, which were organized with a 3-year delay and saw Condé's ruling RPG party win a majority of seats in the National Assembly.
Now, as the West African nation of Guinea head towards their presidential elections on Sunday, authorities imposed an overnight curfew on the second city of Nzerekore after clashes left at least one person dead. Over the weekend, at least a dozen others were injured when clashes between President Alpha Condé and opposition leader Sello Delen Diallo supporters. Opposition parties have raised concerns over the credibility of the voting procedure and are calling for the elections to be postponed. Now, joining us today via Skype from London in England is a consultant for Africa Practice, Alexander Brining, who will be capturing Guinea's elections over the weekend. Very good morning to you, Alexander. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
You are about to travel to Guinea. Violent clashes have broken out over the weekend. Curfew has been implemented to prevent further clashes. What's your expectation? Further clashes as you head into the weekend?
So the wide coverage of the violence last weekend and the curfew has restored calm in the country, but it's not impossible that other violent clashes will occur ahead of Sunday's votes, because the context in the run-up to the poll remains quite tense in the country. But I think that the biggest risk in terms of violence will be after the first round this Sunday. Over the last weeks and months, the Guinean opposition has prepared the grounds to dispute and discredit Condé's re-election on the basis that, in their view, it will be the result of fraud. So the opposition repeatedly announced that they will immediately organize street protests in case of a Condé victory. And as we've seen over the last years, opposition protests have often been marked by clashes with the armed forces. So yes, violence in Conakry and in other cities across Guinea is possible in the coming days and weeks.
Now, the elections itself, the outlook at the moment, what are the polls saying so far between President Condé and opposition parties?
So in a country like Guinea, making exact predictions is quite challenging, actually. What is clear is that President Condé has good chances of being re-elected. As an indication of his potential score, in the 2013 legislative elections, Condé's ruling RPG party garnered 46% of the votes. Now, Condé's re-election is likely due to a combination of factors. First of all, in Guinea, ethnic affiliation remains the most important factor in determining voting patterns. President Condé is from the Malinké ethnic group, which represents around 30% of the population and which will give him a solid foundation of votes. In addition, Condé has formed alliances ahead of the first round with high-profile politicians from other ethnic groups, and this will allow him to garner votes outside his own ethnic groups. Condé will also seek to capitalize on some of the successes of his first term. For instance, he recently inaugurated the Caleta hydroelectric dam, which has brought electricity across the capital, Conakry, and will undoubtedly win him votes. A final point, which I think is quite important, Alpha Condé will have the benefits of incumbency. And we know that this is an important factor in elections in Africa. Condé controls the national and local administration, which will enable him to exert some degree of influence on the vote.
Now, concerns have already been raised about the credibility of this election, the previous one that he was elected in. There were doubts cast over that as well. What's being put in place to ensure that this election will be free and fair?
Well, first of all, the international community, so the UN, the US, and the European Union, has been involved financially and technically in the vote preparations. The international community will also monitor vote operations and vote counting processes over the weekend. The opposition has also been involved in the vote preparations, although they believe that their concerns over some issues relating, for instance, to the electoral roll have not been heard. Overall, I think that the election will be imperfect and most likely flawed, but that ultimately the result will be credible.
Opposition parties are calling for a postponement. Is there a chance that the elections won't go ahead on the 11th of October?
Yes, so that still remains a possibility as we speak. Using the 2013 legislative elections reference again, in 2013, the election was postponed only 3 days before the vote, and we are today 5 days before the presidential election of this year. So what I want to say is, if there is a postponement, it will most likely be a short-term one, by around a week, we expect, which could push back the election to Sunday, 18 October.
Opposition parties have questioned some issues. They claim that minors have been registered to vote in this case. Do you have any idea of this kind of allegations have been investigated in the run-up to the election?
So the enrollment of minors has indeed been rumored in Guinea. Among other things, this is why the opposition and the government organized a review of the electoral roll throughout September with the support of the international community. Now, it's quite unlikely that all inconsistencies and issues in the list of voters have been corrected, but these are hopefully marginal by now.
There are concerns now around the African continent about leaders seeking more terms than the constitution allows in their countries. Is there a risk of this happening in the near future in Guinea?
So as far as I can recall, President Condé has not made any public statements on this issue during his first term. We have to understand that Condé is a historical opponent to Guinea's successive autocrats. He was elected in 2010 on a wave of optimism and has since put the message that he is genuinely committed to democratic principles. So in addition, we understand that the international community in Conakry has already told Condé that they want him to step down in 2020 if he's re-elected in 2015. So I would say that it would be quite surprising if Condé was to seek a third term, but it's really too early to say at this stage.
Thank you very much for joining us and giving us an insight and safe travels to Guinea for the elections over the weekend. Alexandra Brining joining us via Skype from London to talk about the presidential election in Guinea. Now, yesterday, of course, researchers reported that maternal and newborn deaths in Sierra Leone have soared since the Ebola outbreak in West Africa, as fears being infected and the mistrust of health workers prevented pregnant women from giving birth in health facilities. A study by the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine found that deaths of women during or just after childbirth rose by almost a third, and those of newborns by a quarter between May last year and April of this year. The world's worst recorded Ebola outbreak, which killed 11,300 people in Guinea, Liberia and Sierra Leone since it began in December 2013, has set back progress on maternal health in that part of the world. Let's take a look at some of the comments that have been coming in with regards to this and, of course, ahead of the elections there. Fun facts. So, did you know, says Ebola survivors in Sierra Leone are greeted by spiritual songs, dancing and a goodie bag when they leave the hospital. Then Valera Gromov says baby and maternal deaths soar in Sierra Leone amid Ebola fears. Researchers say this. This is talking about health in Sierra Leone. There we have a picture from Ebola Info in Sierra Leone, giving the stigma of Ebola G. Relevance.com search article. There you have that picture incoming. Now, a South African man is working hard to make his dream of owning his own traditionally African-themed hotel and restaurant one day. But the first step to achieving this goal, Sbusiso Ntisana started butler training course earlier this year to learn every inch of the industry. As part of his training, Ntisana has been working with a non-profit organization, Relate Bracelets, for the last 12 months. Over the past 5 years, Relate Bracelets has raised nearly 30 million rand from the sale of their products, which has supported more than 65 South African causes. Joining us now is the aspiring entrepreneur and member of Relate Bracelets, Sbusiso Ntisana. Very good morning to you. I thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Mr. Jansen.
Mr. Jansen was my dad. You can call me Iba. Nice to meet you. Tell us about your hopes, what you're hoping to achieve with this new initiative.
Pardon me, please, sir?
The initiative, you're hoping to do a unique scenario around creating your own hotel. How's it going?
Yes, it's going well. Getting more experience. You know, currently I've just been doing a training at the Clarendon Fernsnay Hotel, right here in Sea Point. And I'm getting more experience and learning more things about the industry.
You've been working with Relate Bracelets now. Talks about impacting the lives of employees through upskilling. Can you briefly explain to us how this works?
Yeah, so what Relate actually does is that in the township where you would get the elderly gogos and the grandfathers who thread the bracelets into this big bowl. And then we as the youth, we take that and make the bracelets, which is we call the closes. And with that, the elderly and us, the youth, we get an earning opportunity, and also we get into different programs, you know, to be able to go to study with what we actually get from what Relate actually makes from the bracelets. Yes,
now, your dream is to build an African-themed hotel and restaurant.
Yes.
How has working with this organization allowed you to get closer and to achieve this goal?
Obviously, I would say, firstly, when I sit down and having to look at my future and the opportunities out there, there's so many things that are offered to us. So getting there to that dream would be, at first, I need to get more experience and actually learn about everything in the industry. Because at the end of the day, I cannot do a work without any experience. So I actually have to know what I'm getting into, and because will be dealing with people here and guests from all over the world, so that they may see what we as Africans we are doing here in Africa. So, and that will actually get people and to understand what we as people all over the world, we learn, and then from learning we get experience, and then after getting an experience, we put things into work together, and we create a platform where we would be able, people will have peace and to learn from one another.
You've also undergone a butler training course, which is completely out of the box thinking if you want to achieve the dream of building an African themed hotel. Tell us what that entailed and how you see that making a contribution to your dream.
Okay, there are different skills that we have been taught in the course, and one of them is etiquette and how to do service, and I mean that how to put things together to make the client or the guest happy in the house, and one of the greatest things that I've learned is that in the course is that everything is possible, and you as a person, as a person who serves the guests, you always have to be polite with everyone that you're dealing with, and you try to find out what are their needs, and you try to provide those needs for them. And to satisfy your guests is one thing that any company or any hotel would like to do. So that's one of the greatest things that I've learned from the course, and and also entrepreneurial skills and being creative and innovative. There are different things that you can do. As I've said, that I want a African-themed hotel.
Yeah.
So not everything will be made out of a glass. So I mean, we can also use wood as a cup. So that's like an African thing that old people, they used to do. At the time, there were no glasses. So why not now in our days and bring back what used to be done back then? So we use those things, they understand, and bring them back into our African culture.
Sibusisa, thank you for joining us. It's a wonderful concept, and all the best with this endeavor. I hope that your dream is a reality sooner rather than later. That's Sibusisa Ntisana, who's an entrepreneur, a man who's got a wonderful dream and who's making it happen himself. That's our Africa slot this morning, looking at some of the positive stories coming out of the continent. Time for us to take a short break. Newsroom will be back right after this.
Media Monitor, the title says it all. Can we really afford more job losses at such a critical time in our economy? Join our panel of experts as they unpack and monitor all the leading and breaking news stories making waves in the print and social media platforms. It seems we don't have a famous son-in-law any longer. Levi, what do you say to this? An A-lister.
I'll leave this one to Levi. He's the romantic.
Watch Media Monitor with me, Alicia Jali, Sundays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News channel.
We live in a digital era, and the number of Africans with mobile phones is rapidly increasing.
Twitter use is predominantly being done on smartphones. This is a very African phenomenon.
Here, there are constantly new innovative ways to make the internet more affordable. With that, we're seeing protests against governments proposing methods to limit access. On Network, we give you information about all of this. We also have new computers, games and robots.
Join Siphumelele Zondi on Network every Sunday at 19:30 CAT.
Right now, it's time for your weather update with Philip Hawkins.
Thank you very much, Elvis. Well, the first thing we're going to take a look at, of course, the big news today, the sporting news, the Boks up against the USA, and let's give those Eagles a thrashing. And this is what's going to be happening while we're beating them. We're going to be experiencing about 14-degree weather there. So it is a little bit chillier than we're used to playing in, but nevertheless, we're going to get it done there. We're also expecting good visibility, 70% humidity, and wind speeds of about 15 kilometers per hour. It is going to be a little bit of a gusty one, higher level though, might just affect the higher kicks, but back in towards the weather in Southern Africa for today, we're expecting clear conditions all the way throughout Southern Africa's central regions here, moving towards South Africa's central regions as well. That heat wave continuing to affect the eastern parts of South Africa here, expecting temperatures very, very high there. We'll take a look at that in just a minute. But for now, higher pressure systems begin to take a hold of that area again into tomorrow. Now, this, of course, is what's causing these warm temperatures, is higher pressure systems in the upper atmosphere. Now, that, of course, continuing into tomorrow might just bring a little bit of higher and mid-level cloud cover through South Africa's southern interior there as well. Let's take a look at those temperatures as promised. Of course, very, very hot days expected throughout the entire region there. Pretoria 37 degrees, Philippo 36, and of course Mahikeng peaking at 34 degrees. Uppington's warm as well, 35-degree temperatures ranging through the 30s, in fact, throughout almost the entire interior there. The coastal regions along that southern coastline expecting a much more pleasant day there. East London at 23 degrees with a partly cloudy sky. But the temperatures continue to rise as we move into southern Namibia. Now, Marienthal and Keertmanshoop share a 39-degree maximum for today. It's going to be very sunny in those areas as well, so please watch out. The dangerously high UV indexes forecast through the central Namibian areas here. Windhoek at 36 degrees. Walvis Bay and Swakopmund expecting a very, very small amount of rainfall despite the very sparse cloud cover in the area. Now, as we take a look at Botswana, no cloud cover whatsoever. Expect Gaborone to peak around 37 degrees and Maun at 38. In fact, temperatures getting no lower than 36 in your maximums for today in that area, no lower than 31 in Zimbabwe in those maximums as well. So it's going to be a very hot day there too. Beitbridge and Kariba share a 37-degree maximum temperature. These, of course, uncomfortably warm, especially if you're going to be in the sun. If you're going to be in direct sunlight in Tete today, 39-degree maximums forecast for you. It is going to feel even warmer than that, so please do stay out of direct sunlight if you're in any of these hot areas for today. Of course, hot conditions forecast throughout most of southern Africa for today. Beira peaks at 29 degrees and temperatures ranging between 34 and 36 in the far southern regions there. Southern Madagascar also expecting a hot one there with 36-degree maximums in Hosi. Morombe at 31 degrees and temperatures ranging through the later 20s and early 30s as we look at northern Madagascar as well. Now, continuing towards your island regions, a little bit of cloud cover over Moroni and Anjouan, but in general, that cloud cover will not last very long, and it should not affect your day too badly whatsoever. Some rainfall forecast for Pralin and Sontini once again, though a very, very small amount of it, and it should not affect your day there either. SABC Weather Desk, our email is weather@sabc.co.za. Give us your feedback there or contact us directly via our telephone 011 714 5077. That's it from your weather for now. Lots more coming up in the show. Stay tuned.
Good. Point. Sit.
Get behind Rugby World Cup 2015 on SABC.
Health Talk, your show on health practice.
The people being empowered with knowledge so that they can change their behavior and reduce their risk of being sick.
How serious is stress at work?
If we don't address workplace stress, that negative stress, then it can lead to burnout and it can lead to depression.
How does absentees affect companies?
The one that's really problematic for employers is the one that is unscheduled.
How can companies organize their wellness program?
Health promotion mustn't just be a one-size-fits-all type of approach. It must be customized based on understanding of the unique needs of that particular organization.
For health tips that will help you to adopt healthy living with Dr. Sello Mutawung on Health Talk every Saturday.
On the one, hey? This is Newsroom, the final hour. I'm Elvis Preston. Hello and a very warm welcome, Jumbo Africa, from our Auckland Park studios here in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. We bid you hello in the last and final hour. My name is Elvis Preston. Let's take a look at all your headlines. COSATU leads the National Day of Action as part of the World Day of Decent Work. Ahang says it's confident that the High Court in Cape Town will deliver a fair judgment in their case against the National Assembly Speaker, Baleka Mbete. And it's D-Day, the judge for King Dalinyebo, who's meeting some of the traditional leaders in the area. Those are all your headlines. And Kendall Makamata is sitting here with me to give you your latest in your sports news.
No, thank you very much, Elvis. We really are looking forward to talking sports today. In fact, what I'm going to do right now is give you a sneak peek into exactly what we've got in sports for this particular bulletin. Now, at the Rugby World Cup last night, Romania staged the greatest comeback ever from 15-0 down against Canada at halftime to claim a 17-15 victory. The Springboks will be gearing up for another must-win match, this time against the 16th ranked United States. And Orlando Pirates, they've arrived back to a hero's welcome after beating Al Ahly 5-3 on aggregate to make it into the finals of the CAF Confederations Cup. And that's exactly what we've got in store for you for the sports bulletin. Make sure you stick around for that. Back to you, Elvis.
That's all coming up with Kendall a short while, but right now let's take a look at your headline. In fact, your top story for this hour. A national minimum wage, better public transport systems and the scrapping of e-tolls. Those are some of the demands highlighted by workers in marches today. COSATU is leading the National Day of Action, part of the World Day of Decent Work. Legal marches will be held in various cities and towns. The Labour Federation's president, Dumo Dlamini, says they're calling for radical socio-economic transformation. Now, we will keep you updated on all the marches. In fact, the march right here in Johannesburg, we will give you the latest that's happening here in Johannesburg with our reporter on the scene. But renewable energy is not just a buzz phrase anymore, but it's a very serious reality that no country can ignore. For the first time, the International Renewable Energy Conference was held on the African continent this week. And as the 6th Energy Conference comes to an end in Cape Town today, it's been announced that South Africa has plans to build another solar park in the Northern Cape to produce an additional 1,500 megawatts that will help to keep on the lights. as the country is tackling its energy crisis. Now, joining us today to talk more about what has been discussed at the International Renewable Energy Conference this week, we are joined from Cape Town by the Department of Energy's Acting Director General, Dr. Woolsey Barnard. Doctor, very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning. Thanks to be on the program.
Doctor, how has the conference shaped not just South Africa's, but Africa's strategies in dealing with the challenges of energy?
I can just mention that, firstly, just about the conference itself, we're very fortunate that we had 82 different countries around the globe that attended this renewable energy conference, and the majority of those have come from Africa. In terms of the question of how it's been shaped, I think it's important that as part of the outcome of this conference, that as the name of the conference were Re-Energize Africa, is that a lot of initiatives have come out specifically based on the fact that South Africa have gained a lot of ground in renewable energy in the last 3 to 4 years. We want to use that as a springboard to assist into the region, SADC region, into Africa with renewable energy in terms of solar, wind, biomass projects that we have launched in South Africa, and to utilize those experience also for other developing countries.
Now, on Monday, the minister said that renewable energy is really easing the stress on the grid. How much is it contributing to the national grid?
Right now, South Africa have signed up with 92 projects, which is a total of 6,300 megawatts. But what is live on the grid is 37 of these projects are already live on the grid, which supplies 1,800 megawatts. Just to put it in context, is that we are currently, as a country, decided as part of our energy mix, which consists not only of renewable energy but also cleaner coal and gas, to go forward with a trajectory of decreasing our CO2 emissions. And as part of that, we have then engaged in the renewable energy projects, which then will, over time, we divide it up in different windows to ensure that the different technologies can also mature to grow into our needs for the future. And hence why, up till now, we have signed up what we called Window 4 already. Window 1 and 2, those projects are now in line, and the others are under construction, and the number of 37 is ticking off literally on a monthly basis.
We understand that there's a renewable energy program that is set to be rolled out throughout the entire African continent. Tell us more about that.
That's right. As part of the outcome of this SADC conference, which was the 6th conference in the world around focusing on renewable energy, it first come now to Africa, and South Africa were the host, and we're very fortunate for that. As part of this conference, there was a lot of initiatives being launched. One of them, or a couple of them, is that the International Energy Agency launched their midterm review on what is the global progress in renewable energy. And then it was also from the International Renewable Energy Association, the African map for renewable energies for the next 15 years. A link to that was also the SADC plans and also South Africans' reflection on our progress. So for Africa, there are various renewable corridors that's been established in progress. And that's where South Africa also wants to share our knowledge and our experience in the last couple of years to assist with this development. But I think just in terms of South Africa, as part of the SADC region, we're also very proud that the SACRI center has been announced. That's a center that is going to promote the renewable energy and energy efficiency for SADC countries. Has also been announced formally here at this conference. And South Africa and all other countries in the region will then also contribute to promote those energy, renewable energy, as well as energy efficiency for the region in the years to come.
There's a very important role that independent power producers play. Has that been highlighted at the conference?
As a matter of fact, the reason for the conference to be held in South Africa, and you can think for yourself, right now there's 164 countries that have renewable energy targets, and the whole world is focusing on this now. For South Africa, to be honored to have such an important conference just before COP21 is because of the success story around our renewable IPP program. It has been held as one of the success stories in the world, and even the developed countries that have ventured onto renewable energies for years and years are now looking to South Africa to follow our process as the process to go to the future in terms of how to implement renewable energy. But more than that, we have also been honored by United Nations to be identified as the 10th most important renewable energy country in the world right now, which has really taken us in the last 3.5 years, from basically a zero base to a base where we are operating and playing an important role globally in renewable energy. And I think it's important that the community and the citizens of Africa is taking note of that. And as you're traveling through the country from Eastern Cape, Western Cape, Free State, Northern Cape, you do see these projects currently which are producing electricity, as well as those that are currently under construction.
Thank you, Doctor, for your time. That was the Department of Energy's Acting Director General, Dr. Woolsey Barnett, chatting to us. Thank you so much for your time and giving us that breakdown of the conference. Now, in your breaking news, the Western Cape High Court in Cape Town has dismissed the case brought against the National Assembly Speaker Baleka Mbete by 3 opposition parties. Ahang, COPE and the UDM had wanted Mbete to be declared unfit to hold office. They also want the court to allow the use of a secret ballot among MPs on a no-confidence motion in the president. The court was expected to make a ruling yesterday afternoon, but delayed the process until this morning. A group called Black First, Land First, have stormed the Public Protector's office in Pretoria, demanding to meet Thuli Madonsela. They want her to speed up an investigation into 26 billion rand that was allegedly stolen from the Reserve Bank pre-1994.
The demands are clear, but the group was determined to make a lasting impression, forcing their way into the office. And no amount of mediation would deter them.
Where is the 26 billion? Why are you protecting white capital? This is unfortunate that an institution which has got such big reputation, such as the Public Protector, is failing to protect the public.
The police had to be called in to restore order.
The 26 billion rand relates to the findings of an investigation commissioned by government in 1997. The CIEX probe reportedly found that some of the money stolen from the Reserve Bank had been channeled to commercial banks and offshore accounts.
The report was handed over to then-President Thabo Mbeki in 1999. And 4 years ago, Madonsela started investigating why the report is gathering dust. On Twitter, she explains that the probe has been derailed.
The major hold-up has been caused by resource constraints. The Public Protector could not have dedicated investigators to continue with the investigation.
The Public Protector hopes to finish the investigation by the end of the year. Aldrin St-Pierre, SABC News, Pretoria.
Aba Tembu traditional leaders will meet today at Bombani, Great Place outside Mthatha, to discuss King Bulikaya Dalinyebo's legal woes. The king is facing a 12-year jail term after he lost an appeal in the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein. He has been sentenced for various crimes that he committed in the 1990s. King Dalinyebo has decided to approach the Constitutional Court to review the judgment.
Last week, a faction of Amadlomo clan supporting King Buelekaya Dalinyebo nominated his 22-year-old son Azenati to take over from his father should he go to jail. This comes after the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein last week reduced his 15-year sentence to 12 years for kidnapping, arson and defeating the ends of justice. It also set aside his culpable homicide conviction. Buelekaya has vowed to file papers in the Constitutional Court. Some chiefs in the pro-Dalinyebo faction have threatened to join their king in prison if all his legal attempts to stay out of jail fail. Meanwhile, a faction of anti-Dalinyebo chiefs led by Chief Thanduxolo Mtirara has dismissed the nomination of the king's son, arguing it is unprocedural. This group wants the king to be suspended pending finalization of the proposed Constitutional Court challenge.
To Tyria. is an internet platform that allows students to connect with tutors to learn over 450 subjects from mathematics, music, cooking to jewelry making, among others. Created by Nigerian tech guru Godwin Benson, students can now get personalized services from selected tutors in a country where many parents complain about the quality of education in public schools.
Meet Godwin Benson, a technology expert, entrepreneur, and tutor. A lack of payment for his tutoring services gave birth to a novel business idea. Benson now runs Tutera, an online platform that links tutors with students and allows them to provide private lessons for clients. At the same time, tutors are assured of getting full payment for their services.
I thought that how could I make it possible for people to find people that they want to learn various things from. And initially I was thinking in lines of academics. But then after speaking with people wanted to learn photography, dance, bead making, and so I decided to extend the idea and see how I could make them easily connect and also process payments for lessons and classes.
About 3,000 tutors signed up on Tutoria in the first 3 months of its launch. Another 4,000 are on the waiting list. Tutors go through various stages of evaluation before they are signed up on Tutoria. Olanrewaju Aderinto, an undergraduate engineering student, makes extra cash as a tutor.
The platform is very, very good. That can give you an extra income while you are in school. All you have to do is to plan your time very well, plan your timetable very well in class, so you won't clash with your classworks. You just enjoy it.
Tuition fees vary from $2.5 to about $25 per session. Benson makes his money by retaining 30% of total payment a tutor makes. His focus is now to expand his client base and grow his business further.
The joy of being able to bring something from an idea to a reality that people actually use. We are all inspired, I and my team, by the opportunities we are creating for thousands of tutors and clients, in fact, millions actually. So the mere fact that a few of us can impact so many people because of the idea we have is quite satisfying.
The clients agree.
He was able to give me somebody without wasting of time. I didn't have time, because I wouldn't have had time enough to go and look for somebody somewhere. But before I know it, the person even had to come to my house.
For Benson, this product is well on its way to help improve things in the education sector.
That's a novel idea from young people on the African continent making waves. Tutoria. That is a program where these tutors teach your terrorist at home. Now let's move on to local stories here. Legal experts say that it's too early to tell what impact the new evidence relating to the Bob Hewitt's rape and sexual abuse trial could have on his appeal process. Reaction has been pouring in on social media after SABC reports of emails showing that the women who accused the former tennis champion Bob Hewitt of rape communicated extensively before the trial. In court, the women testified that they had only limited contact with one another and never discussed the case. 75-year-old Hewitt was convicted on 2 counts of rape and 1 of sexual assault earlier this year. The women had all been coached by Hewitt in the 1980s and the 1990s when they were girls.
Emails between rape accusers Suellen Shihan and Teresa Tolkien emerged. In the thread, the two discussed issues of the case, despite denying that in court. In one conversation, the question of whether or not rape constitutes penile penetration is discussed. The advocacy group supporting the women since the beginning of the trial says the emails are being blown out of proportion.
The facts of the matter remain. These women were abused sexually by Bob Hewitt. It sounds to me that there's quite a lot has been made from normal conversational thing into something quite sinister.
The tennis champion was sentenced to 6 years imprisonment. He won a bid to appeal the sentencing and has been petitioning to appeal his conviction.
If true, it will prove that the 3 complainants are unreliable witnesses. So therefore we'll have to approach the President of the Supreme Court of Appeal.
The NPA was not aware that the witnesses had frequent communications before they testified in court. The prosecutor who prosecuted the matter led evidence on the basis of the statement the witnesses deposed to the police.
The NPA is awaiting a briefing from the prosecutor before it decides on the way forward. Hasina Gori, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, that's your news for now. Kendall Makamate is standing by with your sports news.
Your World makes it its business every evening to round up the leading local stories and international news to keep you informed all the time.
Make a date with Your World every evening for all the news headlines around the world to keep you abreast with knowledge.
Catch Your World for headlines across the world every Monday to Friday from 9 p.m, then Saturday and Sunday from 7 p.m.
To the box, all the best, boys.
All right, now you could see exactly what those Proteas players were mouthing. Boca, Boca, Boca. And this is because the South African rugby team is bracing itself for a must-win match against World Cup minnows, the USA in London, later today. The Springboks put themselves in this predicament with a tournament opening loss to Japan. They rallied with wins against Samoa and then Scotland, but still need to cross the line and qualify for the quarterfinals. And so the fate of the World Cup aspirations rests on a win against a team ranked 16th in the world.
The Springboks have put themselves in this situation, and they know that they are the only ones who can get themselves to higher ground. There will be no favours from any of the teams in this group, with both Scotland and Japan still in with a shout of progressing themselves.
We had massive pressure the last 2 weeks. That pressure is still on. At least now we know the way we want to go, what's successful for us, and then just taking that a notch further.
So the word from the camp is that they've come right at just the right time. They'll get a physical match against the USA, if nothing else. Although after 2 massive tests in the last 2 weeks, this crucial encounter will test Bok limits to the nth degree.
It is a little bit tough for the body, it is challenging, but all the teams have to go through it. It's something that we've prepared for mentally.
The Boks will finish the pool stages at a grand 54,000-seater venue in the east of London.
Simon Burke, SABC News, London.
And now turning our focus on the other team, the 16th ranked United States. They're gearing up for their penultimate Pool B encounter. This, of course, against the Springboks at the Olympic Stadium in London. Australia, on the other hand, prepares for their all-important Pool A decider against Wales this coming Saturday.
The US has made 12 changes to their starting lineup for the clash against the Springboks. The Eagles have lost their first 2 pool matches against Samoa and Scotland, and naturally will be eyeing their first win of the tournament either against the South Africans or the Japanese in their final match on the weekend. Tonight's encounter will be an exceptionally special occasion for American scrum half Nico Creer. Born in Pretoria, Creer is one of 15 South African-born players in the World Cup playing for other countries.
Obviously for me it's going to be an opportunity that I've dreamt of for a very long time. Probably going to be pretty emotional at the same time. But I mean, you know, it's just an opportunity to play against some guys that you know have made it big in the sport. You know, so it's an opportunity to go out there and just enjoy myself and take on the moment as it comes.
Despite being tied on 13 points each with 3 wins apiece, the Wallabies will start Saturday's match at Twickenham as the overwhelming favourites, having beaten Wales in their last 10 encounters. But the Welsh, considered the dark horse of the tournament, will not be downed easily. The Aussies, though, have done their homework.
Yeah, they've been consistent. You know, we've done a lot of work on Wales. You know, having a look at their set piece and what they offer on multi-phase. Obviously, you can't give away any penalties. You know, with Dan being such a successful goal kicker, they really crucify you if you give them opportunities. So the key there is to trying to put them under pressure and then backing the way and the style that you want to play the game, and our preparation will be so.
As an added incentive, the winners of this match will likely avoid defending champions New Zealand in the last 8. Samantha Mari, SABC News.
And so here's a recap of the results from last night. Now, there were 2 matches played, as you know, in Pool B as well as in Pool C. And what we're looking at right now is a throw forward to the matches that are going to get played this afternoon. Oh, there we go. Those are the results from last night. Canada, Pool D, they lost against Romania, leading 15-0 at halftime. Romania scoring 17 points in the second half after the 50th minute, mind you. The biggest comeback in Rugby World Cup history. Pool A, Fiji, they thrashed Uruguay 47-15, but Uruguay were up for the fight and tried really hard, but they couldn't quite get it in the end. Now for a throw forward to what's happening this afternoon, another must-win match for South Africa in Pool B at the Olympic Park in London against the United States of America. And then Pool C, our neighbours, Namibia, to see if they can get a win against Georgia, who've been doing extremely well so far. All right, now, with that said, that's where we're done with regards to exactly what's happening with the rugby today. I do believe right now we're going to tell you a quick look at social media on exactly what's happening with people's thoughts on the Springboks match. Now, the first couple of comments should be coming up shortly, and I know that there's been a lot of comments being made by a whole host of people wishing the Springboks good luck, as well as making sure that they know that the entire country is behind them. Now, Ms. Madlingos reckons Springboks should really embarrass the USA on Wednesday. That's today. But then again, Japan surprisingly beat us. I'm just saying, ooh, that's a bit of negativity there. We don't need that today. We need support for the Boks. And the king of rugby, Springbok coach Hanneke Meyer, has made 2 changes to starting 15 for the final. Pool B clash with the USA, and those were injury enforced, if you'll remember. And then Kamil Ali, USA doesn't have a single point yet. Any Springbok side can beat them with the proper mindset. We are good enough. That is true. We are good enough. We shouldn't have been in this predicament where we're talking about can we beat the USA or not, but we are. Percival Young, if Rudy Page makes his debut from the bench against the USA on Wednesday, he will be Springbok number 869. Thank you very much for that bit of trivia. Wouldn't have known. Thank you for telling us. Digana reckons is the squad. The Springbok squad will come through to the finals. USA, it will be our preparation for the next match. Didn't quite make sense of that one, but I'm sure that it's all positivity that we're trying to get out of that particular tweet. Now, this is what met Orlando Pirates when they landed at OR Tambo yesterday. If you remember, they beat Al Ahly in Cairo over the weekend. Now, they got a hero's welcome. Let's take a look at what happened at OR Tambo.
I'm an African. As you can see, I'm proud of what Orlando Pirates did. And I think it must be an eye-opener to some other teams in South Africa, particularly Kaizer Chiefs, Sundowns, and some others. Pirates, well done, my boys. Pirates, well done. You are the big team in South Africa.
Orlando Pirates is the giant of Africa. Believe it or not, like it or not, Orlando Pirates rocks!
Well, there you have it, pandemonium, as the team known as the Ghosts Ipagania coming to town after that glorious victory in the CAF Confederations Cup. They are now through to the finals of the CAF Confederations Cup final.
Now, a little earlier at the top of the sports bulletin, we try to play a little clip for you which showed the Proteas team out on the Indian subcontinent giving support to the Boks. They also roped in, incidentally, players from the Indian side. Virat Kohli, Mahendra Singh Dhoni as well, saying, Boka, Boka, Boka. Let's take a look.
Boka. 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 Come on, MS. Boka. 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 Yes, please. Thank you.
To the Boks, all the best, boys.
Catch! Point! Six!
Get behind Rugby World Cup 2015 on SABC.
Well, welcome back. It's time for us now to go around the country for a regional update. The Tshwane Metro has condemned the latest defacing of Paul Kruger's statue in Pretoria and called on people to desist from cheap politicking. Mayor Kgotsienso Ramogopa says the vandalizing of the statue was an act of criminality aimed at political point scoring. Green paint was thrown on sentries surrounding the statue, and the area around Church Square has been cordoned off. Earlier this year, there was a spate of incidents related to statues and monuments around the country. Now, for the latest, our very own reporter, Sipho Stierman, is in our Pretoria studio to tell us what has been happening. Very good morning to you, Sipho.
Morning.
The issue of statues doesn't want to go away by the looks of it. Tell us the latest, what's happening with the Church Square issue, and is there any update on the Paul Kruger statue itself?
Well, you're quite right there. It really isn't going away. As you mentioned there in your intro, that this defacing happened before, actually, around April and March this year, where the Paul Kruger statue was defaced with a green paint. And now it happened again just now, yesterday, and we reported on this, that it was defaced again, despite the fact that it was actually cordoned off. There was like fencing around it. So it's interesting. It shows that those people that were who defaced it were actually determined, because they had to have climbed over that fence around the statue to actually paint it again with a green paint. Now, what's different this time around is that there hasn't been anyone who claimed responsibility. There hasn't been anyone who's been found to have been guilty. If you remember the last time, EFF claimed responsibility and they admitted that they did it. This time, no one has yet been found. However, but one of the quickest people to react to this was the Democratic Alliance, saying that, you know, this is a political ploy by certain parties who are trying to gain popular support as we head to the 2016 local municipality elections.
No one has taken responsibility. No one's who's suspected of this kind of political point scoring, as the mayor called it.
Well, you know, with the 2016 local elections coming up, a lot of parties obviously are trying their best to gain support. And obviously the defacing of the statue was something that was very popular across the country earlier on in the year. And this is something that certain parties who are desperate for votes would actually go back to try and show their supporters or would-be supporters that what they stand for, and by doing so, perhaps they would get their votes. So no one has taken responsibility yet, but obviously the police are looking into it, as we understand, and hopefully they'll bring this matter to an end. And actually, because I think what's needed here is action, people to see that, you know, if you deface statues, you're not going to get away with it, that there will be actually legal action taken. And so far in all of these incidents, we haven't seen any legal action really. And I think that is something that actually does a disfavor to this, because people now continue doing this because they can see it's easy to get away with it.
How is this going to be policed going forward? The Tshwane Metro, they've come forward. They say they're going to take tough action. What are they going to do to protect the statues in the capital?
Well, at first they spoke about having a 24-hour security being, stationed around the statue. They spoke about having police vans patrol around the statue quite on a regular interval. That was the reaction we got from the first defacing. And I suppose then, obviously, those measures are not working because it happened again. But another interesting element to this is the fact that, the Arts Minister, Natim Tetwa, actually said that there is going to be a national museum of these statues that are being defaced, or the ones that people don't want to see in public spaces, where all of them would be removed and taken to that museum. So perhaps now the better solution would be if that museum comes to play, and then these certain statues, after of course going through a legal process, have been removed, and then they would be placed there.
What are the people of Pretoria saying about these acts? We know they're always quite vocal about it.
Well, people are largely divided. There are those who are pro the defacing of the statues. They say that, the statues traumatize them. They remind them of the past and the horror that we went through in the country during apartheid times. But then there are those that say, but it's all part of our history. We shouldn't eliminate certain sections of our history. So just as it is in the country, it is dividing people out there.
Nasiba, I know in the capital you guys are also looking at another story, a very interesting one at that. It's around the lifting of a moratorium on the trade of rhino horns, which a lot of people are looking at. Can you give us an update on that?
Oh, yes. Well, the application was actually brought a week or two ago by two private rhino owners, the largest, the biggest two private rhino owners in the country, where they want the rhino horn trade ban to be lifted. The ban was invoked in 2009 in the country, but internationally the ban has been there since the 1960s. So they're saying that since 2008, over 5,000 rhinos have been killed in this country. And they're saying the reason for that is because of this ban. People have no way of buying rhino horns legally. Thus, they go and poach. And they feel that if the rhino horns were to be sold, then it would actually decrease the incident of rhino poaching. And of course, the Department of Environmental Affairs opposed this application. It says that, the reason that rhino poaching has increased is due to crime syndicates being smarter and, having increased. It's not necessarily due to the ban. And they've also said they've accused the two men that they've actually are driven by a desire to make profit, not necessarily to protect rhino.
Well, thank you for joining us, Sipho Stierman, for that update in the capital, coming to you from our Pretoria studio, dealing with the stories that are in the news around the capital. We're now going to move our attention to KwaZulu-Natal. Gleblin's Hostel in Umlazi near Durban remains tense today. Another prominent leader there was gunned down at the weekend. More than 30 people have been killed at the hostel since the beginning of the year. Police say the war is apparently over the allocation of beds there. Now, Ayanda Mhlongo joins us now from the hostel in Umlazi with the KwaZulu-Natal spokesperson for the Department of Community Safety and Liaison, Kwanele Ngalane. Very good morning. It's still morning. Very good morning to you, Ayanda.
Good morning to you, Eben.
Just quickly, before you do the interview, set the scene for us.
Well, as you have correctly said, this past weekend, another leader dying here at the Gleblin's hostel. In fact, as you can just see across from where I am is block 52, and that is where the incident took place. Bongani Hlope gunned down together with another gentleman, he was one of the leaders here at the hostel. We understand that a group of armed men entered into the room that he was staying in in and shooting him there, killing him instantly. It brings, as you said, Yeben, to about 30 now, the people who have died at this hostel, apparently over the allocations of bed. But this is a war that started, we understand, about 6 years ago, residents here are saying, and it has been extremely difficult. A number of people have lost their lives. It is no longer safe for residents, are saying that many of them are living here because they don't necessarily have a choice. The Cleveland's hostel offers them a proximity to their places of work. It is close by, and of course staying here is much cost effective for them, much cheaper than trying to find accommodation elsewhere, and therefore many of them saying that they don't really have a choice. They are here in the city to look for work, and this is the place where they've been able to live for many years. However, it has become extremely difficult for them, not knowing every single day on the evening when they go to sleep whether or not somebody else is going to be attacked. Here, it's a regular thing. Now people are being killed, people are being attacked. Aside from those that have been killed, many others have been injured. It's also placing the lives. When I see around me, there are lots of little children as well who are playing. And when these incidents take place, gunmen will just come in blazing, firing randomly. And this could also put the lives of those children at risk. It is a very difficult situation for the residents of Cleveland. But while the situation, of course, remains tense, it is calm. There is a heavy police presence. I don't know if my colleague Tulani can just pan just a little bit. You will see the police officers that are here. These are the police cars that are here. They're from the local police station, Mlazi. There's a heavy police presence, not only from the local police station police officers, but also we have various units that have been deployed here, members of the POP. We also had members of the National Intervention Unit that were also here just to monitor the situation over the weekend. But just to talk more about the incident, what has been happening here at Cleveland and possibly solutions, because at some point even the residents are crying out, saying that there has to be an end to this violence. 6 years on, and just this year alone, about 30 people dying. I'm joined by the spokesperson for the Department of Community Safety and Liaison, Mr. Kwanele Ngalane. Kwanele, thank you very much for joining us this morning. A very difficult situation for yourselves as a government. It's 6 years, we understand, the war at Cleveland has been taking place. I know that Kwanele, the MEC, Babu Willis Mkhunu, has been talking about interventions. Is your strategy working?
Well, we're of the view that the situation that we are witnessing currently in Cleveland has not reached a proportion where it's really uncontrollable. Our view is that we have applied multi-pronged strategies to deal with the issue of conflict in Cleveland. Part of it is there to facilitate negotiations. Part of it is to make sure that there is high police presence, but also there's strong detectives to investigate some of the cases. And beyond that, we are also looking at facilitating all security measures by eThekwini municipality. They are installing new lights, they are installing a new fence in the hostel, and we want to also make sure that governments take control of the administration of the hostel, who goes in, who goes out, and are those people accounted for. So all those are part of the interventions by government. And from where we are sitting, we of the view that after police have been deployed inside the hostel, except for this incident that happened over the weekend, most of the incidents were taking place outside the premises of the hostel. The one happened near the court, the other one happened in Montclair. So it shows that the presence of the police can be felt by those who are perpetrating violence. That's why they've opted to go outside the premises of the hostel. But even even if that is the case, police have managed to make a breakthrough. In the murder case of Mthembu, police have arrested 2 suspects in connection with that case, which is an indication that they are out in full force. We are making sure that as government, we also coming on board to support the work of the police to make sure that perpetrators of this violence are brought to book. But we also further appeal to the community of Clip, because they know these people, they know perpetrators of this violence, to share information with the police, because the difficulty that police are experiencing is that They can trace suspects, but in the absence of evidence, in the absence of witnesses, that case won't be a winnable case in court. So those are the challenges that we are experiencing, but we are really confident and optimistic that the situation is going to calm down, it's going to normalize in this hostel.
Well, apparently the feud, or the center of the feud, is the allocation of beds, and the municipality initially used to be responsible for the maintenance, for the running of this hostel. How did it come about that there were people living here who started to take over the running and start demanding monies from the residents, as well as now maybe in discussions with the municipality? What has the municipality, the Durban municipality, been doing to try and regain control of this area?
Well, the issue of the allocation of beds is one among other issues. When the MEC came here to engage with the people, there were also other factors which were cropping in, which could also be a root cause of this conflict. Therefore, we're not at the stage where we have got one specific issue that will identify and say this is the root cause of the conflict. There are other small issues beyond the issue of bed conflict. Alleged conflict from Eastern Cape also comes to play. Also another issue of taxi hitmen as well. We're in conflict residing. So there are a number of factors that are coming to play. But what we are satisfied by the fact that some of the suspects that have been arrested, they've also been linked with other cases that have been happening in this hostel, which to us brings hope that we are going to see the end to this killing that are happening in this hostel. But as for the issue of administration, is an issue that the MEC has engaged the eThekwini municipality. They are putting together mechanisms of how they are going to ensure strong administration and governance of the hostel themselves, not only in Klip. KwaMashu is the similar situation. Therefore, we are looking at the entire administrative process where government will take control and be able to account for each and every individual that is allocated in each and every room, because historically, as people used to go to our hostels as a hiding place. Therefore, you've got a lot of criminal elements within the hostels. You've got a lot of most wanted suspect hiding in hostels. Therefore, that's what we want to get to the bottom of, to make sure that we're able to account for each and every individual that is allocated, so that we know if somebody is a suspect, if somebody is wanted by the police for whatever criminal, even if that was not committed in Cleveland, elsewhere in the province or in the country, is able to get to the bottom of that.
But also speaking about the interventions that government has put in place, also in terms of the police presence you're speaking about, but the people of it's only the people of Cleveland that will be able to sort out what has been the input from them. Are they coming forward and willing to work with government to try and bring an end to this crisis that they're faced with?
Well, the MEC started by setting up a committee of the two warring factions here in Klip to facilitate dialogue. And as that committee was towards the stage where they were finding one another, they then disintegrated. And in that process, we've seen the incidents of violence continuing. But we are now resuscitating those discussions, and we are facilitating dialogue, and we will be engaging these factions and the community of Klip. And we are optimistic that as soon as they come on board, as soon as we work together, all of us will be able to resolve the situation.
Gwanele, thank you very much for your time. Mr. Gwanele Ngalana, the spokesperson for the Department of Community Safety and Liaison here in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, just taking us through some of the interventions that the government has applying here to try and bring an end to this violence, which, as I said earlier, Eben, has lasted over 6 years, and just this year alone, about 30 people losing their lives. The police are going to continue to keep a close eye. They are monitoring this place 24 hours. Various units, and they even also, the municipality has hired or employed the services of private security guards, and we're just hoping, and the residents are hoping, that that police visibility will ensure that they remain safe, and while they're working and discussions are continuing to hopefully find an end to the violence that has gripped the Cleveland hostel. That's all I have, Eben, so let me take things back to you now.
Thank you very much. Yanda Mhlongo with, a very concerning report there from Umlazi in KwaZulu-Natal, where more than 30 people have now lost their lives this year alone in the ongoing conflict there. That wraps our regional update. Let's go to Philip Hawkins, who's standing by with the final weather update for us.
Yeah, thanks so much, Evan. Let's get you another weather update. Now, we're going to start off once again taking a look, for those of you who haven't seen yet, at the South Africa-USA forecast. Now, it's going to be a 14-degree Celsius condition there. We're also going to see some quite high humidity, 70%, 15-kilometre-per-hour winds mean low wind speeds, but we are expecting about a 40% chance of showers earlier in the day, so it will not be raining during the game, but it might just rain a little bit earlier there. Might make things a little bit slick. If it doesn't rain, should be a great game, and we will see that later on today. But let's get back to what's going on in Southern Africa for today. A little bit of cloud cover along the coastal regions there. Higher pressure systems begin to take over into tomorrow, though. You can see that moving into South Africa's northeastern areas. Now, this is what's bringing in these very, very hot conditions. And as we take a look at our temperatures for today, you can see those conditions. Ermelo at 33 degrees. Pretoria 37 degrees, and temperatures ranging into those 30s as we move towards that central interior as well. The southern interior remaining warm as well, temperatures in the 30s through that interior, but towards the coastlines, temperatures do come down to the lower to mid-20s there. In towards the southern parts of Namibia, what we're going to see is very, very hot conditions, especially around Keetmanshoop to Mariental. 39-degree highs forecast for these areas. Warm conditions as well as we look towards the northern regions here. The capital of Windhoek peaks at 36 degrees. Now, stay out of the sunshine here. UVB index is very, very high for today, and it's going to be very high as well as we move through Botswana. No cloud cover whatsoever. Very, very low wind speeds, and we're going to see Hukunsi peaking at about 37 degrees and Chibong 38. Now, that's all the weather that I'm going to bring for you for now, but that's it from me. Do stay in the shade today. It's going to be a hot one.
Yeah, thank you very much, Phil. Time for us to wrap up proceedings here today. But before we say goodbye, interesting development.
Yes.
Trending, Tokyo Sexwale. What's going on?
Definitely been a busy morning on Twitter, but definitely for Tokyo Sexwale, Eben, because Franz Beckenbauer has come out and said that he will support Mr. Sexwale if he does decide to run for FIFA's top position. We know Tokyo hasn't announced yet if he will definitely be running for the FIFA presidency. But there are mixed reactions about this on Twitter because France also said the German Football Association will also be backing.
Well, that is massive. I can tell you they have a lot of influence, not just in Europe, but around the world. And Franz Beckenbauer is probably one of the 5 most powerful people in world football. So that's a massive endorsement for Tokyo Sexwale. I'm sure there'll be lots of varying messages. What a time to be alive, and South Africa. Time to shine, South Africa. Yes, Sunati, that's the right kind of spirit to take this in. Of course, Kendall Mahamate and Elvis is here with us to say goodbye. How do you view this kind of thing as a man who works in the sports?
I'll tell you this much, that you're right, that absolutely that Beckenbauer supports, says he'll support Sexwale. It takes me back to that 2006-2010 thing, because we did a bit of a deal with him, and I think they're carrying on with the same.
Well, that's where we got to leave it here, but I was going to add, of course, a politician becoming FIFA president. That's another issue. But that's where we got to leave it for today. From myself, Elvis Preslin.
Me, Kendall Mahamate.
And me, Go Booker this afternoon. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Ciao for now. Arrivederci.